In three, two, one. Welcome to the Wannabe Artists Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Choi, and I'm here with my other host.
My name is Justin Choi.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, we switched it up. Joshua did the intro.
I just did like one sentence that was like...
You were supposed to do something kind of special.
Okay, well, I couldn't think of anything when I was eating. So.
Jesus. Anyway, like he mentioned, we are here, back again, finally. And we are here at the end of the year, which is crazy to me.
I know. This year went by really, really fast.
Yeah.
But I feel like also like a lot happened. Okay, I saw this like TikTok that was saying like this is like the first year to like be competing with like 2016 as like being a generational year for like everything, like film, music, pop culture, like memes, all that stuff. Because I feel like this year was like so packed with like different stuff happening. Like each month there was like a new thing. And I guess also because it's an election year.
Honestly, yeah, that would make sense. To understand that comparison, because 2016 was like a cemented year as like in history for pop culture. But yeah. I don't know. Bro, like, was this year or was that year as notable as now?
Are you asking if 2016 is as notable as like 2024 or like
or 22 or 23?
I feel like 2016 is more notable than like past years. But like this year, it's debatable. I just feel like so much happened. Obviously, the election.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Since the last time we were recording, we have a new president.
Yes. Well, not currently, but we're going to have a new president in 2025.
Yep.
And we'll just hold off on any opinions on that because it's not a political podcast. But
nope. But I'll just say no comment.
Yes.
Anyway, though, it is kind of crazy. Like we said, this is almost like a full circle moment because our very first episode 6 months ago was us recapping some of our favorite media from 2023.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that we're back at this point. So
6 months, man.
Yeah.
That's half a year of this podcast.
I know. And we only did 10 episodes.
That's not that bad. I mean, dude, we're both in school. Like we have
we're busy boys.
Yeah, we have stuff. Like that's like almost like 2 episodes per month.
Yeah.
It's like 1.4, I think.
But well, we have a lot to cover today. So I think we should stop yapping. And like our very first episode, we're going to be talking about our favorite films of the year, favorite music albums of the year. And we decided this time... Wait, did we do it last time?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, we are also including our least favorites of the year, which we're going to be starting off with. So our least favorite movies and albums, and we're going to mention some TV shows as well. Yeah. But we're going to start with films right now. Do you want to start reading off your list, or do you want me to start first?
Should we just like take it from like each spot? Like we'll talk about number 5,
yes,
number 4. Okay.
Yes, I know. Might sound a little confusing, but we want to make sure our structure is less messy than last time.
Yeah, because we were all over the place.
That was a disaster, but we were figuring it out. We're pros now.
That was our first episode too.
Yeah, like we're pros now.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with our worst films of the year.
Yeah. So you have some dishonorable mentions. So you want to mention those first?
Okay, we've decided I'm starting first. Okay, starting with dishonorable mentions for films this year, I have Emilia Perez, which is a notable Oscars kind of contender Netflix movie.
I've never heard of that film, actually.
Yeah, it stars Zoe Saldana, and it's a musical, kind of like historical melodrama. Okay. Not historical.
Is it like a period piece? Like
it's not a period piece. I'm not going to go deep into it, but I don't think it belongs in the talk for Oscars. It was very cringe. And
I mean, you're not really a musical person, right?
I'm not. And the subject matter is about gang lifestyle, and also this gang leader trying to transition, and it's a musical.
Like transition, like gender?
Yes.
Oh,
so I'll leave it off of that. Anyway,
all right.
To keep it going, we have Miller's Girl, starring Jenna Ortega. Very cringe. I despise this movie.
Wattpad.
Yeah, Wattpad ass story. Worst use of Jeff Buckley I've ever seen. We have Rebel Moon Part 2. I think it's really funny that in the same year we also had Dune Part 2. And just seeing that kind of side by side is hilarious to me. Zack Snyder fail. And my final two, I kind of like to group these two because these are just like ambitious, silly failures. We have Megalopolis and Aggro Drift.
I'm surprised Aggro Drift isn't in your top 5, but
Honestly, it like barely skid by because I find it really funny.
okay.
All right. Do you want to talk about your honorable mentions?
I don't have any dishonorable mentions.
Really? Okay. I guess you can start with your number 5 then.
All right. So my number 5 is Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Which
Mhm.
I mean, I don't really care about this franchise like at all. I've never really been into like the whole kaiju universe and all that.
You don't
And-
get off to it?
No, sadly not. But I struggle to find anything to talk about this movie because it's so like bland, it's so generic. It's honestly not nearly as bad as like the rest of my films on my top 5. I think the biggest offense that it commits is that it is so bland and generic. Like it just feels like the culmination of like what action movies have become.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like the CG is pretty all right. Like the final fight's kind of cool with like the scale of it and everything, but I'm just really like I was so out of it by then because like I'm just not invested in anything. Like the characters are all one dimensional. The dialogue is like painfully quippy, like MCU style, and yeah, just a bad movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, soundtrack usage. One of the
Oh
worst
my
I've seen this
God.
year.
It feels like a shitty movie trailer, but extended to like a full feature length movie, and it's like it's painful.
Yeah, there's one moment that stands out. I always forget the name of the song, but it's just like they're doing something kind of cool, and they play the "I was made for
Oh my
loving you."
God. Dude. Yeah. It's just like everything about this movie is like generic and forgettable. Like I don't remember anyone's names of the characters. I don't remember anything that happened in the movie. I just remember like big monsters fought and it wasn't that interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you get off to buildings being crushed and big animals tackling each other, you'll love it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, my number 5, which I'm also noticing is on your list, of course, is the new Mean Girls. Yeah, we mentioned not a fan of musicals. They have to be done in a very specific and particular way that for me to enjoy them. And they have to kind of service the story in
like
a way
the
that
songs?
Huh?
The songs?
Yeah, for sure. They have to service the narrative in a way that's like fitting.
Yeah.
And this is the polar opposite of that. I know it's based on the actual musical or Broadway show or whatever.
Yeah, it's a Broadway show.
Yeah.
Which is based off the 2004 movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is a legendary movie, but
yeah, the original isn't like a masterpiece by any means, but it's so reflective of like 2004, and I think its iconicness.
It's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
Like just the sense of humor, the style, to everything about it.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say was that this is not the approach I wanted to see with a Mean Girls remake, especially when you're gonna adapt it into this TikTok-ification of the Mean Girls story, because oh my God, just everything from the writing, the editing, and the songwriting is horrendous. And I still sing that one song. I can't even watch as he touches her hair, and I've seen a snake eat a cow. I sing that to myself every once in a while because I think it's horrendously bad.
This is one of the worst like shots I think of any movie like this decade. Like what are those called where it's like following their like face?
Like a POV tracking shot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that has like a name. It's like named after someone. Okay, we don't know.
Well, I guess I'm not a movie expert.
If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I'm not a movie expert.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't have much to say. It's absolute cancer and insufferable, and it's for the TikTok generation.
For sure.
Which we are a part of.
But we're one of the good ones.
Yes.
We're two of the good ones.
Yeah.
So for my number 4, we have The Merry Gentleman. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really watch the entire thing. I kind of jumped in like maybe like half an hour in when my friends were watching this during a Secret Santa function.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a shitty Hallmark Christmas movie with Chad Michael Murray in it, and it's about like this like nightclub that this woman's parents own, and she's like trying to save it by having these like male stripper type dancers. I don't even know what it's called. Like it's like Magic Mike. It's like those type of dancers, and one of them is Chad Michael Murray, and there's like a romance with it too. And it's just like it's horrendous. It's very very funny. If you want a good laugh this Christmas, well I guess Christmas is past, but if you want a good laugh, I would definitely recommend this movie because there's some hilarious moments, but it's pretty horrendous. And yeah.
Well, off the bat, you've invalidated your opinion because you didn't fully watch it.
Okay, well, I got the. I don't think those first 30 minutes were gonna drastically change my like view of this film. You know, like
Yeah, I'm partially trolling, but also, yeah, I'm sure you got the idea of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a sneak into this list because like I didn't even seek out this movie. Like it was just on at a function.
It found you.
It found me and found its way onto this list.
I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, it's like it's a Netflix like.
Oh, it's
like,
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Lol.
Lol. Yes. And yeah, that's The Merry Gentleman.
All right. My number 4 is the Garfield movie, starring Chris Pratt.
Oh my god.
I'm just gonna say Chris Pratt has cemented himself as one of the worst voice actors of this generation.
It's a little harsh.
No. I just watched Onward recently. He wasn't doing it for me there. Super Mario. He does not fit Mario. He's just Chris Pratt.
Why did you watch Onward?
I was trying to finish the Pixar catalog.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people will point to the Lego movie, but I'm going to be so honest. I think really any actor can do a competent job at voicing a character who's meant to be generic and like an everyday man.
Like he did just enough to be Emmett in that
exactly.
movie. And that's not at all like what makes that movie good. Like no one's looking at Chris Pratt's performance.
Yeah. And he continues this, except somehow much worse with Garfield. He's literally just voicing himself. Like Mean Girls, one of my biggest gripes with the Garfield movie is its editing. It is the most hyper ADHD nonsense that you'll see in an animated movie this year. And I couldn't stomach it. It was giving me a headache.
I honestly, I haven't seen this movie, but I could just tell from the trailer that it was going to be some hot ass.
Oh, yeah.
And I was saying this to Justin a few days ago that I feel like celebrity voice actors are like what they are to real voice actors is like the equivalent of what AI is to visual artists. And in the sense that they're like basically taking jobs from people who are much more qualified and would create a much better product if they were hired instead of these like shitty replacements that are just like lazy. Like celebrity voice casting is so lazy because it's just to make more money and to attract a wider audience.
Yeah.
At the cost of a lower quality product, basically.
No, yeah, for sure. And I think there was just no reason to bring back this IP. Like it was literally just made to capitalize on Garfield.
Nobody asked for a freaking
no one did.
Animated Garfield movie.
Starring Chris Pratt.
I've never really understood the appeal of Garfield. Like, have you ever read like a funny Garfield comic? Like, honestly,
I couldn't name anything off the top of my head, but maybe.
I know Garfield's beloved, and I'm probably pissing off a lot of people, but I don't know. I just feel like Garfield is like that one thing, that one like big piece of pop culture to me that I've never like understood the hype for.
I agree to that sentiment. I've
like,
never.
He's more iconic than he is like worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know,
I get what you mean.
So for my number 3, we have Borderlands. And I guess this is the same type of movie as Godzilla X Kong, towards a very generic action adventure. But man, there's something about this movie that's just like way, way worse. Like I think it's just that feeling of like you can feel that the movie was just shit out without any like care for the original IP or any care for being a good movie on its own. It has like the weirdest like thrown together cast that don't even represent like these characters well. I'm not too familiar with the original Borderlands game, but I know I can tell just by like what the characters look like in the game and who's playing them. Like this is not a good cast at all, and they have no chemistry. The story is generic and really has no direction at all. It really feels like the writers were just like writing as they went
Mhm.
and just like shit out of first draft to be in the final movie. And yeah, I think this movie is just representative of like Hollywood slop that
Oh yeah.
is very prevalent nowadays in mainstream movies.
I agree with everything you just said. This is also my number 3 spot.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and I am also not too familiar with the Borderlands property, but this movie does not make me want to check out anything related to Borderlands, maybe ever. Because yeah, this is corporate slop
Yeah.
like personified. Like this is just a bad idea for a movie, especially in an age where video game movies there's like potential and there's actually quality
Mhm.
to making good adaptations, and this is just absolutely not one of them. I don't know why Eli Roth was chosen to helm
Yeah,
this
it's
project.
such a weird directing choice, and I feel like you don't even see anything of him
Mhm.
in this movie. Like this movie could have been directed by anyone.
No, yeah. It has just this really annoying, thinks it's so cool energy that I despise.
Yeah.
And I think that's very like emblematic of like recent Eli Roth, but also just yeah, this script in general is just horrendous. I can't remember if he wrote some of it, but honestly, like it just feels straight out of like a boardroom drawer.
Like a first draft
Yeah.
out of this boardroom drawer. But I have a story, and it's that I fell asleep during this movie. But little Justin over here decided to wake me up
Mm.
because how could I possibly miss the masterpiece that is Borderlands? And I hate him forever for that because I wish I'd be able to just fall asleep for the rest of the movie. But he did not allow that.
Dude,
And
my fault. My fault. If I was gonna go through this pain, then you had to go through it with me.
dude, like I was so checked out by like 10 minutes in. Cause I remember the only thing I remember from this movie, like story wise, is that like there's this like battle that happens, but it's like chopped up into like a 1 minute montage.
Hmm.
And you can feel how it was supposed to like they definitely shot like a full thing, but then the editing room they just like cut it out because like messy production. You could just tell.
Oh yeah,
From like
horrendous like thrown together action. It's just like
yeah.
they don't know how to use a camera during the action scenes.
I feel like it feels so disrespectful when an action movie's bad and the action is like also bad.
Yeah,
Like it's not even passable. It's like straight up just bad.
no, for sure. And this is one of those projects that has been through hell to get made. And you look at the final product and you're like,
What, bro?
this is what you came up with after all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment, nothing experience. And I'd say the most notable thing about this movie is that Bobby Lee shows up for 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He's the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
I honestly think video game adaptations like maybe they're just meant for TV because like how many good film adaptations have we gotten versus how many good TV adaptations have we gotten? I feel like TV is outweighing it by a very significant amount, especially in like recent years.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I totally agree because they always try to cram it into one movie, like an entire universe. And
But
like,
most like big game franchises have so much like lore
yeah, exactly.
and they've had like multiple games to expand on it that like putting it all in one movie is like not realistic at all.
No, yeah, for sure. Don't know if I have much else to say about this.
Yeah, I mean it's
Actually,
everyone knows. I mean everyone knows that this movie's bad.
I did think of something.
What?
Video game adaptation films like this are like some of the worst examples of this because like the Uncharted movie from a couple years ago, it's like just redundant to go back to a property that's already so inspired by other prominent pop
Yeah.
culture things. Like this movie is so obviously inspired by Mad Max.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Uncharted is literally just Indiana Jones as a video game.
Yeah,
So there's no point on going back to the original thing.
because now you're just making like a clone of a clone.
Exactly.
Kinda.
Especially when you're going to do it in this like effortless way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. That's Borderlands fart. Don't watch.
All right. So for my number two, we have Mean Girls, the movie musical. So I actually did not finish this on a first watch because
Oh,
I could not stomach how bad these musical numbers were. I actually had to come back to it and finish it on a second watch. And I feel like that says everything, but I'll go into more detail. I think this movie is just like complete garbage, horribly disrespectful to the original movie. And the thing is like the Broadway musical is not even good. Like it's a pretty meh musical, and it has a lot of the same problems that this movie has. It's just the fact that when you're translating that to the big screen, it makes those problems even worse. And I also think every aspect of this movie as an adaptation, they messed up. Like all the jokes from the old movie were all just made worse. Like I would have rather them just repeat the same jokes rather than like turn into what they did. I think the style of like the characters in this movie, like their outfits and everything, I think that's such an important part of what makes the original movie like so iconic. I think they just completely failed in that department too.
mm-hmm.
I think this is like the only movie where I'm gonna be talking about like the what are they called? People who do like the clothes in a production, like the fashion designers.
Like the makeup department and like
Yeah,
costumes.
yeah, costume department. This is the
Yeah,
only time I'm gonna give a costume department shit in a movie because like genuinely these fits are atrocious. I don't like they're like they feel like a Gen X's idea of what like Gen Z kids would wear in high school.
that's
And
hilarious.
it's horrendous. And yeah, all the musical numbers are they're all like popified. They're turned into like Ariana Grande type songs.
Mm,
And it takes away a lot of the charm that the original Broadway musical had, the little charm that the original Broadway musical had. It just completely removes it. And yeah, I think this movie is just a complete failure. And on top of that, it's really hard to get through. It's so unbearably cringe. I don't like
mm-hmm.
using that word to describe things, but it is like
It's the embodiment of cringe.
yeah, it's like painful to watch like them stumble through all these numbers.
Mm.
And I will give credit to Renee Rapp, who plays Regina George, because I think she has very good presence and she has an incredible singing voice. I think her solo music is much better than anything she's doing here. But yeah, that's the only bit of praise I'll give this movie.
Lol. Look, I'm not gonna stan ableist humor,
Mm-hmm.
but like that is like I feel like that's so core to the identity of the original.
Yeah.
And like that kind of unhinged, very dated comedy should be a part of anything Mean Girls from this point on. And for this movie to just remove all that is like so lame.
I think this is a problem nowadays where movies don't want their villains to be problematic.
Nope.
They can be evil, but they can't be problematic. And I feel like you need that, especially in a movie about like high school teenagers. I feel like we should still be allowed to tell these jokes because it's fitting for the story. It services the story. I feel like when you strip that away, it takes away a lot of the edge that
Oh yeah.
this movie desperately needs. Like it feels like even from the way this movie looks, it's so glossy. It's so like bright in a way that's like grating to the eyes. And it's just the downgrade from the original.
Yeah. No edge, clean cut, poop.
And disclaimer, this is coming from someone who is into musicals. So we're getting perspective from both someone who isn't and is into musicals, and we both think it's shit. So
Also,
that should tell you everything.
I think you just reminded me, I think it took me like multiple different sittings to finish it as well.
Because you can't stomach the entire hour and a half of this movie like in one sitting if you're like critically watching, you know.
Yeah.
Like maybe if it's just on in the background, it's on, but
it's like painfully overstimulating.
Yeah.
Oh, I also just reminded myself. I can't remember which musical number, but you reminded me of this, that you were sick in bed and I was watching this in the background and you could hear me.
I don't even think it was a specific musical. No, I think it was just the movie in general. I was like horribly sick. This was after we watched Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah.
I got horrible food poisoning from like this oven baked pizza that I made. I guess it went bad, but I was just laying in bed like suffering. I could just hear on the other side of the room Justin watching Mean Girls the musical on his laptop.
My bad.
It's fine. It's fine.
Not to add any more pain to your.
Honestly, I couldn't even process it. I was so like delirious and like out of it.
It's just like a fever dream nightmare.
Yeah. Basically.
Anyway, enough of Mean Girls. We've talked
Yeah,
about it enough
easy.
today. My number 2 is a little movie called Argyle.
Dude, I forgot this movie existed.
Yeah, and so did the rest of the world. We talked about corporate kind of schlop with Borderlands, but I think it's not on the level that Argyle is.
Mm.
This is one of the most joyless experiences you could ever have with a major blockbuster. I'd say this year for sure. In history, honestly, it's definitely up there.
Jesus.
Talk about an all-star cast who was given nothing to work with.
Yeah.
It's a terrible script. I mentioned in Borderlands movies like having this energy where it's like, oh, look at how cool we are. Yeah, this movie personifies that. Like, it breaks the scale of that.
Honestly, like one of the most unbearable trailers I've had to witness this year. Could not escape it for so long.
It's visually repulsive. Just everything looks so fake and just like nothing. Like there's just no personality.
It looks like plastic.
Yeah.
I think that's how I feel about Mean Girls. It just looks like the real world.
It looks like what? This guy just made a Mean Girls joke.
Okay, but the original, that was a reference to the original, not the musical.
Okay, fine. But yeah, I can't not recommend Argyle enough. And I'm just gonna say it, I'm gonna spoil something that happens in the movie.
Okay.
So this movie is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who is also most known for Kick-Ass and the Kingsman movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie has like I don't remember if it was at the end or an end credit scene that tries to establish a connection to Kingsman and tie the two universes together.
Okay.
And it was at that point I literally wanted to punch a hole through my computer screen because I was just like, I felt disrespected as an audience member. I was like, there is no way you're using this
set up a universe
cheap Marvelification tactic to get me to care about Argyle.
We cut this out.
Yeah, like it leaves you feeling nothing.
Yeah.
And I will never ever revisit this one. Yeah, let's move on.
All right. So for my number 1, we have Harmony Korine's Agro Drawunft. Stupid name.
Had to get the title right.
Yeah. Honestly, this movie wasn't as like unbearable as Mean Girls. I just felt the most disrespected by this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If anything else, like it's, how do I even describe it? Like it's like a video game type movie where like everything is infrared and this guy's trying to kill like a bad guy.
The world's greatest assassin.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one of the most like overindulgent pieces of media I think I've ever seen. Like, it kind of reminds me of, this is going to be a crazy comparison, but it kind of reminds me of like Enter the Void. It has this very like foreboding energy to it where you're just like kind of observing things that are happening. And I know that's like what a movie is, but like you really feel that with these movies. Yeah. And obviously Enter the Void is like leagues better than this movie.
Yeah.
But and how it works for that movie, it actually goes against I think what this movie's trying to do. I think this movie's like trying to be like really cool and stylistic, but it just makes everything feel like grating to the eyes, grating to the ears. Like the soundtrack for this movie is like so obnoxious.
It's an attack on your senses.
It's so loud, like especially compared to like dialogue. You can't understand what anyone's saying. Travis Scott is in this movie, which is a negative in itself. And
let's mention his infamous scene. I go to sleep, then I wake up, then I go to sleep. I'm still sleeping, and I'm dreaming, but I wake up.
It literally feels like the director is just like he's actually just messing with us. He's rage baiting. This movie feels like rage bait because it lingers on so many things that where you can't tell if he's trying to be funny, or if he's just like being weird to be weird. The story is like there's like no story. I don't know how he managed to make this over an hour long because there's like 10 minutes worth of story here. There's all these shots of like the main guy's wife like shaking booty, and it's like it just lingers on, and it's funny at first, but then like it lingers on these things for way, way too long, and you're just like, okay, like can you give me something else? Like this movie, it overstimulates you, but at the same time, it makes you feel bored. And that's like one of the worst feelings you could get from a movie. I think that's why it's my least favorite movie of the year. That just constant feeling of both being horribly overstimulated but horrendously bored at the same time.
I do not disagree with anything you said. Can you remind me, is this the only Harmony Korine movie you've
This
seen?
is the only Harmony Korine movie I've
Okay.
seen. So quite the first impression
Yeah.
to get from this director.
So as someone who ran through his entire catalog before the movie,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say this is like very in line with his style of storytelling. Like he wants to kind of be a troll
Mm-hmm.
and present something that's like very striking to your senses. But I feel like this is just one of the worst examples of
like,
him.
It's such a miserable experience. Yeah. And if that's his goal, like if that was his goal, like good on him, but you still made a shitty movie. Like,
yeah.
Like this is not just like the worst movie of the year for me. I think this is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen, like period.
And he would laugh that you said that. He'd find enjoyment.
Honestly, good for him. That means we both win because I get to revel in hating this movie. He gets to revel in the fact that I hate this movie.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't crack my top 5 because of how I know Harmony Korine and he's a memer, and like he's been on this like weird arc recently where he wants to just troll.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing from some of my friends who attended a screening of this movie in LA before it was like given a wider release, and he came out in like a pink ski mask playing Mask Off by Future, and then like ranted about like microdosing and weird shit like that.
Okay.
So he's on his troll arc.
Yeah.
And even if I also hated this one, I'm hyped for Baby Invasion.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd rather a movie like this, like despite all the things I hate about this movie, I'd rather a movie like this exist than like Borderlands or like Godzilla X Kong, because at least, you know, you can feel that it's trying. It's not following some corporate formula or anything, you know.
Is Borderlands trying?
No, I'm saying this movie is like
this movie.
Yeah,
okay.
This movie is like trying to do something as opposed to Borderlands or Godzilla X Kong, where they're just like being shit out by studios.
Gotcha. Okay,
and
I
have like
misheard
tons
you.
of money behind it. That's it, basically.
Awesome. Number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Whew. Oh my god. I didn't even write any notes for any of these, honestly.
I've never heard of this. Your number 1 pick, to be honest.
Oh my god. My number 1 pick is Unfrosted by Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easily my number 1 worst movie of the year. We are in an age where we like to tell biopics about products now. And this just reminded me of the Flamin' Hot Cheetos movie, because this is a story about the creation of Pop-Tarts as a brand.
Okay, yeah, I did hear about this movie, actually.
Yeah, and this is I'd confidently say this is maybe one of the most unfunny movies ever in existence. It is painful to sit through. I've never been a big fan of like Jerry Seinfeld's humor, and I think this is just like the culmination of like
the worst parts of it.
Yeah, and his like downfall recently where he's been like, "Oh, we can't joke about anything."
Literally like the Matt Rife type humor. This is such a weird like micro genre to me. Like biopics about like very insignificant things that are just like comedies. Like there's obviously like the Flaming Hot movie. There was like Blackberry, which I thought was like, these movies, they feel like they just like come and go, and they're like the moment they're like dead on arrival, basically. Like
No, yeah, literally. But this one was like horrendously shit out and just forgot about instantly. This is a Netflix movie, and it stars, yeah, of course, like I said, Seinfeld, but it also stars Amy Schumer and Melissa McCarthy. And I think that's like
that's a nightmare cast.
Horrendous nightmare blunt rotation. And it's using all of their charisma and mixing it with just this most tone deaf, trying to be satire narrative. And that's just like the worst combination I've seen like ever. Maybe ever. I'm trying to like vocalize it, but this film like infuriates me. It's a painful experience. And yeah, easily my worst movie of the year.
Yeah.
I probably didn't do a great job communicating it, but I think there's no way to really.
Dude, honestly, with movies that are like this bad,
Yeah.
like you can't really communicate it. Like you just have to see for yourself if you
No,
truly
literally.
want like
Yeah.
an accurate representation.
But also I wouldn't want anyone to experience the same level of pain. So it's like you just have to like take my word.
Honestly, bro, Jerry Seinfeld fell off since the B movie. I don't think he'll ever top that.
Oh my, just fuck off.
Bro, the B movie is low-key kind of good. It's a low funny. Like
I don't think it's funny at all.
the B movie is a little bit good. I'm gonna say that.
That was all of our worst movies of the year.
Damn, bro, that was a little bit miserable to talk about.
Yeah, I'm
Getting like Vietnam flashbacks of like the theater experience of aggro drift and like my at-home experience of watching Mean Girls. But
oh my god, that just put me in like a trance. We still have to talk about other things.
Gotta talk about our worst albums of the year now.
Let's go. All right. Do you want to start off or do you want me to?
Okay. So you have 3 and I have 4, so I think I'll start it off. So
All right.
about number 4, we have, it's gonna upset a lot of people. We have The Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams. Do you know who Gracie Abrams is the daughter of? I told you this.
Yeah.
So she's the daughter of Hollywood director J.J. Abrams. So
Jar Jar.
yes. So I'm gonna start by saying that she's definitely a very easy person to hate on because she's obviously benefited a lot from nepotism, not just from her dad, but from also like being on tour with Taylor Swift and having a song with Taylor Swift as well on this album. And I think that Gracie Abrams I give her a lot of unjust hate because I think it's funny, but I think she's really an artist that's like on this album is suffering from bad production rather than her music actually being as bad. Like rather than her songwriting being as bad as what the music turned out to be. I just think a lot of everything on here is just so incredibly bland to the point where it's like genuinely offensive. Like these instrumentals, this vocal production is it's so lifeless and so just like generic. Like it feels straight, everything just feels straight out of the Taylor Swift playbook. And it's really interesting to me how she's like taking this direction. Cause before this album, she was more of like an indie pop artist taking from like Lorde and like Clairo. But with this album, she's taken this new direction with her sound of basically just sounding like early era Taylor Swift, which definitely could be from her having been on tour with her, but it's definitely a choice you could make. And I think she comes close to executing this sound in a passable way with songs like Risk, songs like I Love You, I'm Sorry. I think these are genuinely well-written songs that are just halted back by like bad production, bland instrumental choices, and honestly like bad singing in the studio. Because when you listen to her like live performances, I think all these issues are fixed, and I can kind of see like why she has so much mainstream appeal nowadays. You can see like her vocals are much better live, the instrumentation is much richer live, and yeah, that's my 2 cents on this album. I really think it's not horrendous as I like to joke about. It's just something that's very bland, almost offensively so, and something that's like really forgettable because of it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I'm not very familiar. I didn't listen to this album, but I am aware of her place in like pop culture right now, and I've never liked any of the songs that are kind of blowing.
I mean, you've heard like That's So True, right?
Yeah.
And even that song too, like I think that song's really unbearable like on the record, but like when that's played live, I think it's much better. I think her vocals, production, everything is much better live. So
the only thing I will say is really funny timing. My friend actually posted something to like commemorate the year, and she tagged me, and the song that she used was that the same song?
That's So True.
Yeah. How does it go?
What did I get you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was reposting it, I took that song off because I could not have that on my story.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like, I feel like
sorry, Charlie.
Gracie Abrams, like, she doesn't just have appeal with people that are like into like pop music, like the Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter type crowd. Like, she also has appeal with people that are into like strangely like alternative rock, like Radiohead, Jeff Buckley, Fiona Apple, like those kind of artists.
Mhm.
She has this like weird appeal. I've seen it with people who like that music.
That's bizarre.
I thought it was very bizarre when I listened to the record, but when I've seen her like live performances, I can kind of like see the appeal that people who would like someone like Jeff Buckley would have with Gracie Abrams, because she's very much like,
I'm not one of those.
yeah, she's very like, her sound is very acoustic, like Jeff Buckley's sound on Grace.
Oh
and,
yeah, she definitely sounds very acoustic.
okay. And like the song "I Love You, I'm Sorry" is basically like a Taylor Swiftified Jeff Buckley song. So like,
yuck.
yeah, she has this weird appeal with like people of that audience that
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect.
Interesting.
And yeah, that's what I have to say about this album.
All right. My number 3. And
Mhm.
before I say what it is, unlike Joshua, I don't really seek out bad music in the way that I do for film. So most of the bad music is just kind of the ones that's already like really big in pop culture and like conversation.
Mhm.
Or it's going to be artists that I'm already following. And that's most of what this worst of list is made up of.
Mhm.
Which leads into my number 3. And I kind of group them together. It's Vultures 1 and 2 by Kanye West. Let me just
Like-
say how the king has fallen from grace.
Bro, fucking tell me about it, bro.
Yeah. He's just been on a bad run. Like removing his personal life, I just like his personality, his like effort and energy just like isn't there anymore to me.
Yeah.
The like lengths of these albums are, if I can remember, really unbearable.
Especially Donda.
Yeah.
Even though Donda, I think, is a pretty decent album, but
That's where like
That's
the
definitely an
problems
issue.
really began. And I think
Yeah.
actually
no,
Jesus is King.
Jesus is King
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't even finish Vultures 2 because I couldn't sit through another one.
Honestly, good choice.
Yeah.
Because that album, especially the second half, is so unbearable.
Yeah.
Which I'll talk about later. But
Gave us Fiend, and that's it.
Fiend?
Is Fiend on Vultures?
Fiend is on Travis Scott's album.
Oh, is it actually?
Oh my god, bro.
Wait, I'm trolling right now.
Fiend, dude, Kanye is not in the mental state to even like make a song as good as Fiend.
That's how
That's
out of
how-
it I am with hip hop. Oops. Okay.
Fiend was on Vultures too. Okay.
I don't have anything else to say, honestly. What were you
Yeah.
going to say?
I'm gonna come back to this later because this is higher up on my list. But I mean, I agree with what you said. This Kanye. has
Oh, it's on
fallen
your
off.
list too.
Yes, it is on my list. Kanye has fallen off horribly. Obviously, the neo-Nazi stuff is probably the lowest he's gone in terms of being a controversial figure. I think it's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me as a Kanye fan, because I can't even listen to like the good stuff without just having this feeling of, wow, this guy is like, what he is now is like everything I hate about like celebrities
Mhm.
and like artists in general, which is so sad because I think Kanye's career before Jesus is King is like probably the best discography you can find in hip hop, just in general. Honestly, in music, it's one of the best discographies you can find. So it's just really, really sad to see like this man fall off when he was once like on top.
Yeah, for sure. And I always try to separate my personal feelings towards someone and when I'm experiencing their art that they created, but it's
Yeah.
kind of impossible to avoid with a
Especially,
figure like Kanye.
especially when the lyrical content of his stuff is always so informed by like his life and
Yep.
his like personal, his psyche, basically.
Yep. And this is just like a peek into that. And
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. But yeah, let's go to your number 3.
My number 3 will be Insano by Kid Cudi. This is a very odd album because obviously Kid Cudi is very past his prime, but not in such a drastic way as opposed to Kanye. He's just one of those artists that had like their golden age and kind of slowly fell out of it. And nothing wrong with that, you know, everyone has their peaks. Every artist has their peaks.
Mhm.
It's kind of unavoidable, especially when you've been around for so long. He's been around since like the early 2000s. And I have so much respect for Cudi because I think his best material is very influential, and it's been very profoundly impactful, I think, on not just the generation that got to experience it when it came out, but even like the newer generation of hip hop listeners today.
Mhm.
I think Cuddy's best music has always been sort of like this safe haven of comfort because he's one of those hip hop artists that really takes the time to dig deep into like mental health and that kind of stuff, which is something that I think anyone can relate to. But so it does pain me to put him on my worst albums of the year list. But I mean, this album really is just like a bloated project of, honestly, I don't remember what the lyrical content was, but from what I remember vaguely, it just feels like a bunch of meaningless bangers that have very dated production, very goofy flows, and just like melodies as well. It's just like a complete mess, and it's not even like funny. It's just like sad to see Cuddy like going down like this. And I will acknowledge his 2015 album, I think 2015, Speeding Bullet to Heaven, as being the lowest point in his discography by far. I think it's a worse album than this by a long shot. But I think what that album offers is a very raw look into his very unstable mental state at that time. So even if it's not something that's enjoyable to listen to, it still feels worthwhile. While with this album, it feels just like a man who's stable, but is just making bad art. And yeah,
I'd agree with that because
insane-o.
This is also my number 2. And yeah, it also does hurt me to put it here because I'm definitely one of those people. I've experienced a lot of bad things in my life and bad feelings, and I feel like I always kind of came back to Cuddy, and he was one of those artists where I was like almost reassured that like these feelings I have are like okay to have.
Yeah.
And it's diving a little deep, but this was definitely not the case with Insano. Like I was saying with Kanye, I can always admire like reinvention when you're at this point in your career and you've made such a name for yourself, but not when it's done in this way. Like this is some of the worst examples of reinvention and like kind of trying to genre blend.
It's so weird because it feels like reinvention, but it also feels like regression because these beats, they don't sound like they should be from this era, but they don't even sound like they should be from any era. Like they're just like, it's some of the weirdest beat choices I've heard on a hip hop record because they sound so dated and just so like clunky and goofy. Like it reminds me of how like Tyler the Creator uses very like quirky and sometimes like goofy sounds in his beats, but he does it with finesse and a very specific vision in mind. But for this one, it just feels like some kid hopped on FL Studio and like put together like their first beat, and that's what and Cuddy heard it and was like, yeah, I want to hop on this.
Yeah, I think what you said, it just kind of sums it up. He's just like past his prime, and he just feels out of place in this current era of like hip hop.
Yeah, for sure.
And he just feels very lost, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because you can definitely hear him trying to both have mainstream appeal, but also do like what he's been doing.
Yeah,
he's trying to mix the two things. I think he should just go all the way with one of the two choices.
Yeah,
because I think Man on the Moon 3.
I was gonna bring that up too.
It's like the best thing he's done. Well, best solo thing he's done.
Yeah, in
this like modern day of hip hop, because I think he found his own sound whilst also feeling up to date with like the times.
Oh yeah, like, I know. I still hold that album in like really high regard.
Yeah, dude.
And I think I remember it coming out at like the perfect time during quarantine.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, what's the word for it?
Encapsulates?
Yeah, it kind of encapsulated that like lost feeling and kind of like not knowing what's next in the future.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so powerful. And I would, at the time, I hoped he would continue on that train, but he did not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But honestly, like Cuddy, like has always been a very like inconsistent artist.
Yeah.
And it's something that I appreciate, but it's something that also doesn't really work out most of the time for him. But still, I'd rather have an artist that tries new things every time rather than someone who sticks to the same thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is the biggest sin you can commit as an artist.
For sure. So yeah, major respect for two goats of hip hop, but it's time to stop.
I don't have any respect for Kanye, to be honest.
No,
so major respect for one goat of hip hop and no respect for one former goat.
I guess major respect in the art he's created before.
Yeah.
And less of him as a person. Yeah. Because he's a piece of shit. How about you talk about your number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is The Jesse Volume 4 by Jacob Collier. Jesse Volume 4. And do you know who Jacob Collier is?
Nope.
Okay, so he's an interesting figure in music. He's basically like the modern day Mozart, except he doesn't make bangers. He makes insufferable, hard to get through pieces of music because he's basically the representation of the idea that technical skill is 10% of what makes a good artist. Because he is probably like one of the most skilled musicians living right now. He's like, he goes viral like every day for like his stupid like advanced music theory clips, or like him like making a choir out of his like live audience or something.
Yeah.
It's all that gimmicky stuff. So I checked out this record knowing that I'd probably hate it, just because I think what he represents in music is very much something I'm not against it, but it doesn't really align with what I am interested in music. I'm very much more into the emotional and like the vibe side of like what makes a song rather than the technical elements. Of course, I still care about that stuff and I still find it interesting, but I don't think that's what makes a good song, you know? And I think Jacob Collier has the complete opposite opinion of me, where it feels like with every song he's just trying to cram in as much advanced music theory stuff, as much genre blending as he can, and it just creates these songs that they're not even songs at this point. They're just like technical exercises. It's very similar to that of like an etude, which is like a classical piece designed to like test your technique. But this is not like something that's meant to be played. This is something that's meant to be listened to. And that's why it doesn't work, because like no matter how many like crazy things that are like he has going on in these songs, the appeal of these songs is so thin because it's just based on that wow factor. And I think that's just like, it makes this album very hard to get through, because like each song is packed with so much. It definitely has the aggro drift effect of feeling so overstimulated but also bored at the same time, because like, yeah, he's doing really cool things that are cool on paper, but they're executed so tastelessly that they don't have the effect that having it in like a well-written song would.
Like whole lot of something but nothing at the same time,
basically. Yeah. And don't even get me started on his freaking vocals, which are there's some of the worst vocals I've heard on a record all year. And it's not because he's like off pitch, or because he's like, no, it's not because he's off pitch. It's because he's singing in like the most like healthy way possible, like very reminiscent of how like an opera singer would sing.
Yeah.
So just imagine that, but in the context of like pop music, like electronic music. It's really, really goofy. And yeah, I just honestly, like, I have so many critiques for this album that it'd be useless to even say them, because it just goes against his entire like musical identity. So it's like, you can't just tell like an artist to completely change what they're doing, because
that's
like,
crazy.
Because like, but like that is my critique. Like, you need like, this is a case where an artist, to me, I feel like they need just a completely different approach to music. They need to strip everything back and go back to basics, because he has like the technical skill and like the mind to make something that is like truly amazing. He just doesn't know how to do it. He like, it's someone who knows how to grow like the best tomatoes, the best lettuce. He knows how to raise the best cows and cook the meat perfectly and get the best cheese. But then when he puts the burger together, he just smashes it together and like keeps on punching the burger over and over, trying to make it into one cohesive thing. That is what Jacob Collier's music feels like to me.
That's crazy.
And,
but
yeah.
how much you hate it, I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Dude, it's not like, I'm telling you, it's such a waste of time. Also, this album is like hella bloated, which I think is like a common theme with all these albums besides the Gracie Abrams, is that like these albums are just way too long. And I think we need to go back to the era. Obviously, actually, no, I don't think it's possible, but I would love if artists would go back to mainstream artists would focus on making like tight 10 to 12 track, 40 to 1 hour length albums, because I think that's just like the perfect amount of music for one person to consume in one sitting. But I also agree with the fact that streaming has created this incentive to make longer albums, because you get more money that way.
Yeah. Bring back short form content.
Yeah. Wait. No. Don't Don't bring back short form content. Bring back normal form content.
Not short form, but just like feel like it's okay to make things short and not have
Yeah.
everything be so stretched
Be
out.
okay with being brief
No, literally.
because less is always more.
And I feel like I'm gonna mention that later when I talk about something else. But
Okay.
yeah, great, awesome. Okay, my number one is, and I feel like this just sums up everything we've been talking about in relation to Cudi and Kanye. We have The Death of Slim Shady by Eminem. Yeah, this is just the ultimate example of just an artist who cannot let go of his glory days, but is still attempting to like capture his like magic in a bottle. Because this is some of the worst songwriting and just like concepts for songs that I've seen like in a minute.
Yeah.
And yeah, I honestly don't have much to say about a lot of these albums because I just border baseline. These are just like experiences I don't value.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like Eminem fans will like die on the weirdest hills for this album. Everyone's like, all those Eminem fans are so convinced that like, oh yeah, he's doing these like really bad things, like these stupid things. He's making these bad musical choices because it's part of the concept. But like, it doesn't make it any better. That's
Yeah.
part of a concept. Like it's still bad on its own.
Yeah,
regardless
exactly.
of-
Just because you're self-aware doesn't mean
it's good.
it's going to elevate the project.
It's good all of a sudden. Like, yeah, I agree. Like Eminem also feels like an artist that like he's very much it feels like he only really belonged in the era where he began. Eminem nowadays has been really just like honestly kind of like a laughing stock, which is a shame because he was like on top of the game
Yeah.
when he first started and then like during his prime, but I don't know, bro. It just feels like a lot of his old stuff is very like gimmicky. It's very like based around like this character that he's built up, and a lot of his songs are very based around like a concept. And I feel like that style of hip hop has not like stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you go back to the old Eminem stuff, it's still good, but
Mhm.
like it's very much representative of the era that it was born in.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about energy a lot in this episode, but this album radiates I promise I'm still cool, guys, energy. And I
agree.
can't stand that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my worst album of this year. Sorry, not sorry.
It's so funny that Eminem has gone from like he now raps about how people don't like his music. Like that's what informs the lyrical content of his
Yeah.
music. And it's just it's kind of sad.
He's clapping back at who he's trying to get the attention of.
Yeah.
Which
Like
is really funny.
He raps about making bad music and he claps back to those criticisms by making worse music, which I honestly I can kind of respect.
That's like an art piece in itself.
He's doubling down, which I always respect. I respect the audacity,
Oh yeah. But let's not forget to mention greatest musical line in history. Tobey Maguire got bit by a spider. Me must have been bit by a goat.
Okay, Loki, that song is not horrendous. Like, I definitely think it's one of the better cuts on the album.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that's not saying much, but yeah,
yeah, that's really you're comparing a fart to a slightly less smelly fart,
basically.
Yeah.
All right, so my number one, unsurprisingly, is Vultures 1 and Vultures 2 by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign. I don't even know where to start with these two albums because like everything about it is just like rushed shit out garbage. Obviously, we have the whole AI thing where like some of Kanye's verses were like made with AI. We have the beats on this album which all sound unfinished. We have the lyrics which are either garbage or nothing. And we have the features which are really stupid. Like we have Kanye's daughter, Northwest, on one of the songs of Vultures 1, which
how did I forget to mention that?
I'm not trying to bully a kid, but like I ain't trying to hear you on this record. And yeah, we just have freaking not Future. We have Cardi on what's it called? Carnival, which I think is one of the worst features I've heard all year. And I think
that's the one I meant to say. I said Fiend instead. Okay. I meant to say Carnival.
Yeah, Carnival. Yeah. Dude. And it's just like it's so crazy to me how people like ate up that song.
Yeah.
Even though it's so obviously just like it's just complete garbage. I remember when the album came out and I listened to it, people were like, "Oh yeah, Carnival, like that's the one." I listened to Carnival, I'm like, "Holy shit, like people actually like garbage."
Yeah.
Like I've known this, but like this is the first time I've seen it firsthand by people like I know.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people on their story reposting Carnival like, "Holy shit, this is a goat song." And it's garbage. Everything about this album is not, there's no attention to detail. It's just like it's just the representation of the degradation of Kanye West.
Oh.
You can just feel his like declining stability in every song
In real time.
Yeah, in real time. Like especially going from Vultures 1 to Vultures 2. I didn't know it was possible, but Vultures 2 somehow manages to be even worse than Vultures 1. There's literally a song on Vultures 2 called Fried, which is literally like it's Carnival Part 2. It's the same type of beat, but it's like even worse somehow.
Now time for the remix.
And like I think the reason why these are my least favorite albums is because of what it represents. Like it represents how someone like Kanye can just like get away with like producing garbage and people will still manage to like there'll still be people defending it. Even though with Vultures 2 there is way less people defending it, but there still were people. And the fact that can happen to me represents a very hopeless sentiment in art in general.
You just what you just said made me think instantly about the Jesse, you can't keep getting away with this one.
Literally,
he
bro.
can't keep getting away with this.
Every track, that's what I was thinking, especially with Carnival, because like, dude, people fucking love that song until like the TikTokers party meme. But like, people loved that song. It took like a fucking cringe TikTok meme to kill it, and it's like, come on, guys. Like, I'm not trying to be that guy that's like, oh, I hated it from the start, but like, I genuinely did hate it from the start. I felt like I was crazy because like everyone else was praising this song, but then I was sitting here not just like I didn't feel indifferent to it. I hated it. I'm glad that people are on the same page now.
This is your Leve moment?
What do you mean?
You said you hated it from what?
Oh my god. Okay. Anyways, that's Vultures 1 and Vultures 2. I really just hate it for what it represents.
Yes.
I mainly hate it for what it represents. I also hate the music. And I think the fact that Kanye's recent actions are reflected in the lyrical content of some of the songs here too just make it like all the more offensive to listen to.
This is an offensive album.
Offensive 2 albums.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why this is collaborative with Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign. Like, I know Kanye is handling all the production. It's just like, it just feels like the weirdest collab because like these are like Kanye solo albums basically with Ty Dolla $ign on every song with varying degrees of contributing.
Agreed. Those were our least favorite albums of the year. And I guess to wrap up the segment, I just kind of want to mention some TV shows. Joshua had anything he wanted to mention?
I don't watch enough TV, so.
Okay. I also don't watch as much TV, but I did watch some notable things that stand out as poopy. Of course, like we've talked about in the past, Marvel has been on a very steady decline, and they released, I think, maybe 3 or 4 shows this year. Don't quote me. But Echo at the beginning of the year and Agatha this past fall, I believe, are just 2 examples of like their mental disconnect with what kind of projects they should be putting out. Like these are 2 characters who do not need their own shows.
Who the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do you know any of these characters?
No.
Okay.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah. And if the general public isn't even aware, I don't know. I feel like there's just no point. There's no appeal.
Yeah.
And
they're sinking so much money into these TV
Yeah,
shows.
I know.
Like, give me some, bro.
Yeah, and they just feel like sloppily thrown together. They're not good productions.
Bro, deadass, if I could just get like $1 million from each of these productions, the final product would turn out the same and I'd be much richer. So I think the world would benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of grouped those 2 shows together. We have Avatar: The Last Bender. Oh my god. Little Freudian slip. Avatar: The Last Airbender. My bad. This is the Netflix adaptation, live action adaptation, and everyone was saying that this is like the redemption from the M. Night Shyamalan movie. And while I can agree it's certainly better, which is not a high bar.
Not saying a lot.
And it's more truthful to the original series. That doesn't make this any better because I didn't even finish this one. I got 3 episodes in, and I didn't see any noticeable difference from the Cowboy Bebop Netflix show. Yeah, it just like, it has a very gross kind of look, and you're constantly going to be thinking to yourself, like, why am I not just watching the original property?
Yeah.
And why am I watching just like a watered down, usually more lengthy version for no reason?
Yeah, they always drag it out.
Yeah.
To shit.
So yeah, it wasn't for me. It's greenlit for 2 more seasons. I'm
2 more.
not gonna watch. Yeah, because it's like the show.
Jeez.
Yeah, I won't be watching. And the final thing I want to mention is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, season 2. Did not watch season 2 because I could not stomach season 1. It is one of the most painfully boring experiences ever. It is literally watching $1 million being burned in front of your eyes by Jeff Bezos. It's a show that doesn't feel like $1 billion was put into it, but somehow
that's insane.
They did it.
$1 billion is genuinely insane.
And yeah, I think it just kind of speaks to how I feel about Lord of the Rings as a property over the past decade. They've just been trying to recapture the magic of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And they just will not let it go.
Bro, I feel like at a certain point, like, sinking that much money into like bad art is like unethical.
It is.
Because like $1 billion, like, that could change so many lives.
Yeah.
Like instead, I mean, I haven't seen it obviously, but from what you're saying, instead we're getting just slop.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that actually like makes me kind of sad because like that much money could have been like dispersed to like so many like different projects too, like different projects with more heart and more quality to it. Like, I don't know, maybe this is a conversation for another day, but I feel like that much money into a bad piece of art is like, that's got to be unethical.
Yeah,
like, some way.
You're not wrong. And it turned out like this, and nobody even talks about it. I wasn't even aware of when season 2 came out. I just realized at a certain point I was like, oh, it's out, and that was it.
Jesus.
Yeah. So those are just a few TV shows I wanted to mention. I guess that wraps up our worst of the year segment. Wow, that's put me in a very gross headspace.
Okay, but that's why I wanted to do it first, because now like, we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
And now we can talk
Honestly,
about the
smart
good stuff. We're back, and we're going to be talking about our favorite albums from this year, 2024.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. I'd say 2024 was actually a really good year for music.
Mm-hmm.
I think for pop music especially, there was a lot of big hits, and I feel like at a very big space in pop culture this year. But
Winners.
There's also a lot of good music that wasn't pop that we'll be talking about shortly. And yeah, do you want to start with your honorable mentions?
We're starting with albums, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, do you want to start with songs? I feel like because songs are like, they're like less, but albums are like bigger. So like,
all right, let's do that.
We should end big. All right.
We probably should have figured it out before. Anyway, all right, some honorable mentions for tracks of the year.
Mm-hmm.
We have Cheerleader by Porter Robinson, Club Classics by Charlie XCX,
Great one.
Beaches by Biba Doobie, and we have 2 Magdalena Bay tracks, Death and Romance and Image.
Bro, Image?
Yeah.
That's such a great song.
It just like barely did not make my top 5.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but you know, it's okay.
Those are some good, pretty honorable mentions. I don't know what I just said. My honorable mentions will be Foreign Spies by The Smile. This song, it feels like a Safdie Brothers soundtrack type song.
Yeah.
Very interesting. We have Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, which, look, man, it's hella catchy. I think it's a great, well-written pop song.
Boo.
Shut up. And then we have California by Biba Doobie. I think this is one of her best songs and definitely my favorite from the new album. Chihiro by Billie Eilish. Great production. Holy Holy by Gordy Greep. Unhinged banger. And Starburster by Fontaines DC, which just barely did not make the top 5. But this song is very creative, goes extremely hard, and has a very like emotionally potent quality to like the songwriting as well, with like the whole like softer segment in the bridge, but then it hits so hard in the ending when it goes back to the chorus. It has these like these very aggressive like inhales in the chorus. It's really cool, like how they sort of like interplay like rapping with singing and these like inhales in the chorus. And yeah.
So let's get back to our actual top 5 tracks. So my number 5 of the year is Are You Looking Up by McGee, and this is off of his 2-Star and the Dream Police album. And yeah, I think this is some of his like most impressive vocals, instrumentation. I'm really in love with the vibe of this track specifically. I don't know, it's just kind of, there's like a kind of longing feeling in it, but also there's like a hopeful aspect to it.
It's like melancholic.
Yeah, melancholic. That was the word I was thinking of. And I think it's just a good mix of like all the emotions and what he's trying to encapsulate with the album.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the popular one, but you know what?
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Espresso is one of my favorite songs, so no judgments here.
Yeah.
So for my number 5, I'm going with Like Him by Tyler, the Creator, and Loya Young off the new album Chromacopia. What can I say about this track? I mean, obviously, like with Tyler, the production is always just like on another level. He's like not only a master, but he's also incredibly creative and incredibly he's not afraid to go out there with his sound choices and just his mixing decisions too and everything. So obviously that's a highlight of this song. I think the main appeal of this song for me is the subject matter, him talking about his dad and him sort of expressing his feelings after learning that his dad actually did want to be a part of his life and that his dad was around. He just never got to meet him. And I feel like this is such like a big moment in his, I guess like the lore of his discography, because like obviously his dad not being there has been a big part of a lot of the emotional, I guess, content of his, especially his early stuff. Like we have songs like Answer, we have like his first mixtape literally being called Bastard. It's obviously played a big part in his upbringing and journey as a person. So to have this sort of revelation come and for him to be able to express it in such like an impactful way, I think is what makes this song really, really special. And obviously I love that the production is very reminiscent of Igor. It's a very similar song to Are We Still Friends, which is the closing track on Igor. And I love that song. I love like the 6/8 groove of it and all of that. All of the best qualities of that song are present here. Like there's just an amazing climax at the end, this sort of like explosion of emotion and yeah, that's that's Like Him.
Yeah. I don't know how to follow up that because this is also my number 4. Yeah, one of the most emotionally vulnerable tracks like he's ever put out. I think that transition like with the instruments into the
like the spoken, like the ending.
Yeah, it's like one of the best transitions instrumentally that I've seen like in a minute. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record at this point to all the people who know me, but I was at Camp Flogna. And yeah, this was legendary seeing live.
Yeah, I've seen the performance footage. Like he's putting his heart out there. Like it's so powerful.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I've experienced a piece of art that just felt like so from his soul and like he was putting every ounce of his energy into it. And this one is constantly on repeat for me. Kind of spoilers. This is my favorite track. I mean, obviously it's on this list. It's my favorite track of Chromacopia.
Yeah, same here.
Which is an album I like a lot.
Yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. I also love the transition at the end.
Yeah,
from like basically the climax of the song. It just cuts out like very abruptly, and then we cut to like this sort of spoken section of, I don't know if it's actually Tyler's mom, but if it isn't, it's like a representation of Tyler's mom and like her saying that like, oh, that his dad wanted to be in his life, but and sort of put a stop to it.
Yeah, we can't forget to mention how Lola Young is used on this track.
Oh yeah, dude.
Trying to like emulate a younger sounding Tyler, which I think is just so very poetic and also
like her backing vocals too.
Yeah,
on the climax of the song, they're so good.
Yeah, it elevates what Tyler's doing like to an even higher like degree.
And we all know like Tyler's like the master of like using features.
Yeah,
like always his features are like so well placed. And he's really good. I'm not saying this doesn't really apply to Lola Young, but like he can take an artist that's not very good on their solo stuff, but like elevate them and bring out the best of them, because he has a very specific vision for his songs, and he's able to tell when an artist can fulfill that vision, even if it's not obvious on the surface. Another thing I like about this song is how he kind of leaves like what's happened to his dad as like a mystery.
Yeah.
Because he's being very vulnerable, but he's also very smart about what he's telling the audience. Because what's important at the end of the day is not like what happened. It's more about how it affected him and how he feels about it.
Yeah.
And that's what's being communicated here. And I think he does that like perfectly.
Yeah, this is one of the best examples of tracks where the narrative feels so real and just like like you can't detach it from the music itself.
Yeah.
Like it's just so one in one with it.
Yeah.
And
but it works to elevate the music.
Yeah. And not to get off topic, but I normally don't incorporate how it kind of sits in pop culture with the actual like substance of the song. But I do value a lot of how the song is being used in like edits.
Yeah.
And just like what people have taken from the song. It kind of puts a smile on my face, and like not to get a little personal, but there's some relatable elements of the song that I'm not going to elaborate. You can do what you want with that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's move on. Your number 4.
Oh, my number 4, right?
Yes.
Because that was your number 4. So my number 4 is going to be Alone by The Cure, which is the first song off their latest album. Oh, gosh. I mean, this song is gorgeous. I think that's what I'm going to start by saying. I think it was hard to really know what to expect from a Cure comeback, especially because a lot of their 2000s material is very like, it's not bad, it's just very hit or miss, because obviously you have some of their best songs like Underneath the Stars, but then you also have a lot of very forgettable and sort of like, I guess, whatever material where you kind of see Robert Smith just experimenting with his sound. But I think with this song, they came back in the best way possible, because the song feels so reminiscent of like the Cure's golden days, but with this sort of newer spin on it, mainly lyrically. I think the way he sort of deals with feelings of this being sort of like the latter half of his career, and like him acknowledging that this is like he's out of his like glory days, him acknowledging that gives this song such a different feeling than like the melancholy of a lot of the songs on like Disintegration, even if like the instrumentation is very similar. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, like when I first heard this song, like it brought me to tears. Like it's so gorgeous, like all the synths and the way like the chords just like progress and everything throughout the song. I think my favorite part of it is the intro, because it has like a 2-minute long intro before the vocals come in. But when the vocals do come in, it's also like such a stunning moment, because Robert Smith sounds like the exact same he did
so
like back then.
Satisfying.
Yeah. Like he has one of the best aged voices in rock music, period. And yeah, I think his lyrics on this song are really what sell it and like sort of close it off as like honestly one of the best Cure songs ever for me. And
I would agree. My number 3 is Everything is Romantic by Charlie XCX from Brat, of course.
It's very it's like a sleeper pick. I don't know, I feel that's not a very not a very popular one off the album.
Really?
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
honestly, if we extended this track list to a greater number, I feel like most of my list would be dominated by Brat. But this is the one that really stands out to me. I love the experimentation with this specific track, like some of the best
it's so cool
instrumentals, little flow switch ups and melodies. And at the end of the day, it's just kind of a bop to me. It goes so hard. And I it's hard kind of communicating that, but just when it comes on, like you feel the energy and just like one of the best uses of like repetition of like lyrics.
It's so interesting. It has a very meditative feel, but at the same time, it's like it's so hype. Like has a lot of like energy behind it. It's very, I don't know if you'll like this song, but it's very reminiscent of this song called Calcium by Echo 2K. If you want to check that out. Like it has a very similar like fast repetitive flow to it that this song has like vocally.
Yeah, this is up there with this is right there with club classics for my most replayed Charlie song recently.
Yeah. So for my number 3, I also have a Brat song, but this is a Brat remix, and it's gonna be "Girl So Confusing" featuring Lorde by Charlie XCX and Lorde. And honestly, I was very late to this one. I know it like broke the internet when it came out, but I was kind of just like, I knew the original song was about Lorde, but I was like, oh, okay, like now we have Lorde on it, like that's cool. But I didn't really like, I didn't feel this urge to like check it out immediately. But when I did, I was like genuinely like so surprised, because I think what Lorde does on this song is like some of the most powerful stuff I've heard in pop music this year, where she kind of goes into detail about how like the reason why her relationship with Charlie has been the way it is because of her struggling with insecurity and like eating disorder and everything. I think Lorde has always been a very skilled songwriter from the start of her career, and I think here she's just displaying that in the lens of like the Charlie verse, you know, on this like like being on this kind of beat and having like the auto tune on her voice.
Yeah.
I think it elevates the song to like even greater heights than the original, because I feel like the original portrays a very one-sided narrative, but then this song sort of completes it because it offers a perspective from both sides, and it feels like a very cathartic resolution to like this sort of like conflict, like frenemies type relationship that both of them were struggling with. And I'm gonna be honest, bro, this song also kind of like brought me to tears, because like
wow,
bro, just because like Lorde's verse is just so like, it's so blunt, and a lot of the stuff she's talking about is so like, it's just so sad to hear.
Yeah.
But like it also has a very optimistic like end to it. Like you see like how they've like made up and everything. I think it's very endearing.
I also agree. I think it's really cool to have both of these, like the remix and the original, like coexist, because I feel like can't really live without each other.
Yeah.
And it feels like a very satisfying narrative conclusion to this real life drama, but also I guess their relationship as artists.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest, this is a much more compelling beef than Kendrick and Drake, to be honest. Because with Kendrick and Drake, you're just seeing an artist who's significantly better than the other just like beat down over and over.
Yeah, let's
like,
be for real.
Kendrick, like, it's entertaining, but this is like genuine, like, this is genuine cinema, you know? Seeing two girls just work it out.
Yeah.
In a remix.
Yeah, that black and white Scorsese picture, this is cinema.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, back to me. Okay.
Back to you.
So my number 2 was one that we mentioned, is Alone by The Cure. And yeah, everything that Joshua said before, I agree with. He started talking about this idea of how with comebacks, artists kind of like, not to say phone it in, but they kind of just go through the motions with their return. And I feel this is the exact opposite. It really, truly does feel like no time has passed at all.
Yeah.
And that was just like a beautiful thing to experience with this track, because correct me if I'm wrong, this was the first one released before the album drop, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Single.
So it was like the first tease of like, I guess, the scope of his comeback. And I was so impressed by how he was able to just get back into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we were talking about, one of the best like instrument buildups ever in a song.
Yeah.
It has this like kind of like space, like almost like otherworldly energy about it. And I just think is really cool. And when those vocals like finally come in, like it feels earned, and like all that build up.
It's like a small thing, but I love how like the drums like cut out for a sec before the vocals come in.
Yeah.
It's like very subtle, but it's like, I feel like it's a good indicator that like something's coming, you know?
Yeah. I guess in terms of an emotional experience from a track, this is definitely at the top from this year.
Yeah.
But there's just a couple ones that kind of sit a little higher for me in terms of enjoyment. But emotionally, like I was the most affected by this one.
Yeah, no, it's so weird. Like, I feel like what gets me the most is like, this is kind of nerdy, but like the way the synths are played.
Yeah.
Because you can hear like the chords being released and then played again. And there's just something about like that feeling rhythmically that like, I don't know, it just felt so impactful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you like understood that.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just thinking about
same
the song right now.
Like it's so good. Like honestly, like most band comebacks, like what I can think of from this year is like the Pixies. Like most
Mm,
band comebacks never come close to like those feelings that their best music gave you.
yeah.
But this is like the one exception where like I went straight back to like albums like Disintegration,
Mhm.
albums like Pornography, because like just my God, like what an amazing track.
Yeah. It was a real. It felt like a statement almost.
Yeah,
It's like we're back.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in the most depressing, like cure
Poetic way.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So for my number two, we have Watching TV by Magdalena Bay. Obviously, this album is incredible and the production on it is just insane. And I think the reason why this is my favorite from the album is because it had the most standout production to me.
Mhm.
I think the sort of halftime groove of the song allows it to have a very like free flowing kind of feel where the vocalist, I forgot her name, but she can just like ride over it and sing these really beautiful melodies over it. And I think the climax that this song reaches is like the most stunning on the entire album. It's they use this like sort of like time stopping effect, like
Mhm.
this stuttering effect to sort of build this very like unique sort of intensity.
Mhm.
And it's just like a very cathartic moment. And she's singing this line of "It's time to face the monsters inside you," which I think is like such a profound and like deep lyric. And I feel like it feels so dark, but also like whimsical at the same time, which
Yeah.
is the exact feeling I get from the instrumentation of this track. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not doing this song justice by describing it to you. I think if you want to experience like this song, you need to just listen to it like for yourself, because it truly is like it feels like you're transcending this dimension when you
Yeah.
reach that climax at the end, and it's so great. And yeah.
Awesome pick. My number one, and I kind of cheated a little bit. I kind of grouped these two together, but and I'll explain it in a second. We have Lithonia by Childish Gambino and Sin Miedo from JPEG Mafia. I'll try to explain it, but the reason I grouped these together is because I get a very similar sense of like scale from these two tracks
Interesting.
specifically. And in terms of just like the energy radiating from it and
Mhm.
just like how hyped it gets me. I think these are just two of the most fun tracks that both of these respective artists have ever put out.
Mhm.
Lithonia obviously is a lot more emotional and I guess like diving deep into like a specific like narrative
Mhm.
than Sin Miedo, but I don't know.
They
When
both have a very they both have a focus on like creating a huge amount of energy and
yeah.
like having a giant soundscape
Mhm.
in very different ways. But I get what you mean by like how they feel like songs with a very similar goal. And
Okay, good. You
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
But yeah, some of the best displays of vocals from Gambino ever, and like the
Oh, yeah, for
ranges he
sure.
hits in this track is like easily the most impressive from his Bando Stone album.
Dude, like when I heard like Me and Your Mama for the first time, I
Yeah.
thought like that was the hardest he could go, but like this song, he pushed it even further.
Mhm.
Honestly, I forgot about this song. I forgot it came out this year, but that would definitely go on my honorable mentions for sure if I could
Okay,
redo my list.
nice. And then yeah, Sin Miedo, also some of JPEG's best tracks, or sorry, best vocals.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna be that guy again. I talked about this in me and Kevin's episode, but I saw this one live and it went so hard.
Bro, this dude can rap.
Yeah.
Honestly, bro. Like, especially live,
Mhm.
so much energy.
Yeah, it's between him and Tyler for like best performers I've seen.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my number one.
It's a good
Z-
picks. My number one pick for this year is going to be Good Luck Babe by Chapel Rowan, which is a song I'm sure you are all familiar with. It's one of the biggest songs of the year. And honestly, this to me is just like the perfect pop song. It's what I think all pop should be doing, where it has a very strong concept in its lyrics. It's very creative and it has like the most refined production I think I've heard this year. It's I feel like it's hard for me to pin down like what specifically I love about the song, because I feel like everything individually is like at the top of its level.
yeah.
And that's what's working together to make it my favorite song of the year, because I think vocally this is probably the best performance she's ever given. I mean, like that high note at the end is like insane.
Yeah.
And the fact that she can do it live too is like crazy. And I think production wise, this is probably the best, maybe like top 3, I'd say, of her discography. I really like the 80s, like Kate Bush sort of feel to it. Very synthy, but also like a lot of orchestration and strings and stuff. I think the lyrics on this song are definitely a standout because it's such like an interesting concept of this like love story where one party is sort of accepting of their queer identity, but the other party is like pushing it away. And it's like creating this very interesting conflict that's honestly like never really been explored before in pop music. And honestly, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about it because everything is just working together to create what I think is like the perfect pop song. I think one of the best in her discography.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Yeah. In our unfortunately lost segment of Chaperone, we talked about this a little bit, me and Joshua.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely my favorite track from Chaperone by far.
Yeah.
I would want her to put out more stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because I think it just encapsulates her place in like pop culture right now. And I think this is some of the best vocals that she's given.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just a really good energy and fun tone as well.
Dude, that chorus goes hard, bro. Like it's so overly dramatic. It feels like dramatic. This is a weird comparison, but it feels dramatic in the way like Radiohead is dramatic, where like it feels very over the top, but it also feels like it's over the top in a way that's very like cathartic and not in a way that's like goofy or like it's trying too hard, you know?
Yeah, this one, another just bop. Like it's in my head and I can replay it over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the stickiness of the song, I don't I don't wait, no, there's a better word for it. The like
you just pulled out an M. Night Shyamalan quote.
What?
He says that a lot. The stickiness of my movies.
Okay.
Anyway.
Stickiness as in like how catchy it is.
Yeah.
I feel like this song and Espresso like are on the same level in that regard.
Yeah.
But I think what this song has that elevates it is like emotional weight. This feeling that there's real authentic, like it's not just trying to be fun, it's expressing this very deep and dark place emotionally, but repackage it in a way where you can dance to it.
Yeah.
You can still have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's when pop music is done best. And yeah, that is Good Luck Babe.
Faux show. All right.
Faux show. So now we're going to be talking about our favorite albums of this year. And I will start with my honorable mentions.
Oh.
Because you started last time. So first up, we got Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish, which was a great album. I think this is her most mature record yet. And her most brief too. It's only 10 songs, but
yeah,
I really like the subtle approach that her and Phineas took with the songwriting, the production. Yeah, it's a very solid record. Next we have 2093 by Yeet, which is low-key a sleeper pick, but on God, the production is goated on this album.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see Yeet like be experimental with his music and like go out there and create songs that are like that feel futuristic and that actually feel like it feels like what Yeet has always been going for, but in a less commercial way and more focused on the artistic side of it. And I think my one problem with it is that it's way too long. I think if it was a more trim album, it would definitely be in my top 5. But yeah, this is a surprisingly good album. Next, we have Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator. Obviously, I mentioned Like Him as one of my favorite songs, but this is honestly just another great Tyler album. I don't think this man has missed since Flower Boy.
Yeah.
And like, he's just on the trajectory to be like one of the greatest of all time. And honestly, I feel the same way about my last honorable mention, I Lay Down My Life For You by JPEG Mafia. This is another solid album by him, and he's definitely going down the road of being one of the best hip-hop producers, I think, of all time. And yeah.
All right. Here are my honorable mentions. At 10, there is GNX by Kendrick Lamar. I don't love it as much as Mr. Morale, but I think this is just a very fun one. And yeah, I don't have much to say. I enjoyed the energy overall, the vibes. Of course, Squabble Up, it's a banger. But yeah, not much else to say. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah. And
Um,
quick note, I'm not mentioning any Kendrick because I have not listened to GNX yet,
ooh.
which is my bad. I'm supposed to be a music guy.
It's okay.
Haven't gotten to it.
Can't catch them all.
Yeah.
Moving on. Alligator Bites Never Heal by Dochi. This is actually a recent hop on. She's another artist I saw at Flogna, and I was very impressed by her performing abilities.
Dude, she can rap.
Yeah.
Like, I saw this one TikTok of her like doing this like spoken word section
Mhm.
with like another person. That was really cool.
Yeah, she's awesome, and I don't know. This is a basic comparison, but it brings back that like old female hip hop vibes, and I think that's kind of what we've been lacking in hip hop and rap recently.
I feel like she's bringing back like the theatrical
yeah.
elements of hip hop.
Oh yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
really cool.
And then we talked about a lot. We have Songs of a Lost World by The Cure. Obviously, great comeback album. And yeah, I got I mean, not much else to say.
Yeah.
Alone, of course, my favorite track. Romance. Moving on, sorry. Romance by Fontaine's DC. This is a Joshua put me on. And yeah, I was very impressed by this one. I feel like this just like fits the like tones of music that I've been into lately. And yeah, just some of the most interesting and varied tracks out there. And then to wrap up my honorable mentions is This Is How Tomorrow Moves by Bia Badoobie. And
Bia Badoobie.
Yeah.
All right.
I like to switch it up and say different variations
I like
of her name.
Beatrice Badoobie.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Boobadoo. Anyway, yeah, I think this is like her most mature album by far.
Dude, that's
And, like,
exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But
it just so much growth is apparent through each of the tracks. And yeah, I feel like just her career has just been kind of leading up to this point. Like it feels like one of those scopes of albums.
Yeah. I feel like it's like a third album thing for a lot of artists.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in this year we have Billy and Biba Doobie releasing their third albums, and they're like their most mature releases yet. So I don't know, maybe like it's like a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in my other honorable mention list for tracks, but Beaches is like one of my favorite songs of this year. Yeah, California, Take a Bite, and it's kind of slipping my head right now. Oh yeah, Real Man, great as well.
Real Man's a banger.
Yeah, those are my honorable mentions though.
Yeah. All right, so I'll be starting off with my number 5, which is going to be The New Sound by Gordy Greep. So this is the first solo album by Gordy Greep, who is formerly the lead singer of prog rock, jazz, whatever band, Black Midi. And when I heard that they broke up recently, I was very, very sad because I never got to catch them live. But I think with Gordy Greep's new album, I've regained a bit of hope because this album is just, it feels like all of the energy of Black Midi is still there, but taken in like a completely new direction. Because I feel like here we have Gordy Greep focusing on more of like the jazzy elements and the jammy elements of Black Midi's music instead of focusing on more like heavy guitars or anything, which was the direction I could hear them going on their last album, Hellfire. And I feel like with this album, Greep is just like going all the way with it. He even has like a Frank Sinatra cover as the closing track, which I think is perfectly fitting for like the narrative he's building on this album. And yeah, that's another thing. I think Greep has always been like a masterful storyteller during his days of Black Midi. I think he's just refined that even more with the new sound as he's building this very dejected and almost like degenerative narrative with this character on the new sound, which feels like a very warped like representation of his struggles and his mental state currently.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a very, very solid album with tons of intricate and just like stunning instrumentation. Like this is what Jacob Collier should be doing. Obviously, he wouldn't be doing stuff this out there, but like it's the same sort of idea except done way better.
Yeah.
And oh my god, I almost forgot to mention that Greep as a vocalist has like improved so much. Like he can really carry a track without having to rely on like screaming or anything. Like I was very unsure about his vocal abilities on Black MIDI stuff because a lot of it is spoken word and like very screamy, but this guy can actually sing. Like he has a very operatic and theatrical voice, which is very fitting for the music. And yeah, it carries this album really well.
Awesome.
And that's it. Yeah.
My number 5 is Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator. Overall, I just think this is just another major step forward in his discography and just his musical career. I continue to be impressed by how he pushes the medium forward and his specific goals. Like we mentioned, this is probably the most narratively strong album he's done. Yeah, of course, those qualities are perfect, but at the same time, he has so many tracks here that are just straight up just like fun.
Yeah.
And just like hype tracks like Ratata, Sticky are some of the ones that come to my head. These are also just some of the best examples of his ability to incorporate features like so seamlessly and knowing like what other artists are going to complement him well.
Yeah.
Not
It's so
only
weird. Like having Sexy Red on a song, on a Tyler song,
Yeah.
like that sounds so out there, but
Yeah.
then he somehow managed to make it work. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say not only just like vocally, but I guess like along like we mentioned with Lola Young, like aligning with the themes of the song and just like when he has an idea for a certain track, he wants to choose artists that are gonna not only push it forward, but also it makes sense like
Yeah.
narratively why they would be on there.
No, yeah, I feel like with Tyler features, like I could never imagine the song without them. Not even just on this album, like on Igor, like I couldn't imagine like Earthquake without like Cardi.
Yeah.
Or even like Flower Boy. I couldn't imagine Boredom without Rex.
Yeah.
Like he uses features so well.
See You Again without Caliuchis.
Yeah. And what I love about like the bangers on this album is that they feel like a more refined version of like the Goblin era. I honestly am not like a fan of that album at all. I think a lot of the production is really like amateurish, but I think he's taking that vibe but applying his newfound skill in production to create songs that have the feeling of that era and that sound like what that album should have been.
That's it.
That is Chromacopia. Yeah. Not on my top 5, but definitely close to making it.
Runner up.
My number 4 will be Songs of a Lost World by The Cure. Obviously, we talked about the track Alone a lot, which is definitely my favorite. But I think this album as a whole is very, very solid. It's rare for bands' late career albums to be this good and to be like on par with their best work, because I think it's hard to sort of keep up with, I guess, like how music progresses as a band when you were so in touch with it at a certain point. But I think here, what The Cure is doing is it feels very safe, but at the same time very fitting for what a late era Cure album would sound like. I think a lot of Smith's lyricism is very similar to that of Alone, where he's sort of reflecting on where he is now versus where he was back in the 80s and the 90s, like during his prime. And yeah, it's just a very emotionally impactful listen, obviously from the first track, but even songs like And Nothing Is Forever and End Song are very meditative and just gorgeous to listen to. I really love like the strings on And Nothing Is Forever and the very distorted and heavy guitars on like War Song, for example, show the diversity of this album. Like it can portray this feeling of things coming to an end in both a very beautiful and a very haunting and sort of disturbing kind of way.
Yeah.
I really like the emotional range of this album. And obviously I mentioned it before, but Robert Smith's vocals on basically every track sound incredible. His voice hasn't aged a day. And yeah, I think this album is just a very solid return to form for The Cure, especially after their sort of wishy-washy 2000s run.
And then my number 4 is one I'm just gonna mention. Is gonna be I Lay Down My Life for You by JPEG Mafia. Of course, I was talking about Sin Miedo, and I praised that track specifically. If you want more elaborated thoughts, just go listen to my episode with
Yeah.
Kevin, episode 8. But yeah, one of my favorites though. JPEG, yeah, continues to impress me, and he just keeps putting out bangers.
Yeah. My number 3 is going to be This Is How Tomorrow Moves by Beatrice Badubi. And it's strange because when I first listened to this album, I was very lukewarm on it. I enjoyed songs like California, like Take a Bite, obviously, but I feel like a lot of the softer moments on the album didn't really hit me immediately.
Mhm.
But I think upon re-listening to this album, I really saw the growth and maturity in her songwriting. It really shined through on re-listens, like on songs like Girl Song, songs like This Is How It Went, those like softer, more ballady songs, where at first I was sort of disappointed with how mellow they were, but after re-listening, I found, I guess, like deeper emotion to it that I hadn't really experienced with B's music before, because I think on her first 2 albums, she was very stuck in the middle between making nostalgia bait songs of like 2000s and 90s era rock music in a good way, obviously. Like she's very stuck between that and also writing very emotional and I guess nostalgic in a very like longing way. She was stuck between these 2 different sounds of wanting to make like rocker tracks and like more emotional ballad type songs. And I feel like with this album, she's sort of like mastered both of these sounds, has been able to like incorporate really good songwriting with both of them. Because like we have a song like California where it's obviously a heavier song, more focused on like louder electric guitars and everything, but the lyrics and everything are just so, she's speaking to something very real that feels very authentic to her. It doesn't just feel like a standard like heartbreak song that you find on like whatever artist. And with the ballads, she's able to pull off like this more mature lyricism with a lot more finesse than I think she could before. I think she's just a way better songwriter than she once was.
Yeah.
And it allows her to create more of an impact with these softer tracks.
Awesome.
That is Beabadoobie.
Yeah. My number 3 is Brat by Charlie XCX. And I mean, what can I say that has not been said about this album all year?
Yeah.
It is defined pop culture. Yeah, this is probably, I'd say this is the album this year that possesses like the most replayability. Like I feel like there's just so much longevity to each of the songs and how they're going to be used in not only like social settings, like we mentioned, like actual narrative storytelling in music. And yeah, there's just so many like bop after bop.
Yeah.
We talked about club classics, Everything Is Romantic. Yeah, Girl So Confusing. And then ones that have really grown on me have been Talk Talk and Von Dutch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Von Dutch is a banger. This is actually my number 2 pick as well. So we might as well just talk about it here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Brat is, I mean, there's not much to say that hasn't already been said, but it's just a very well written album. The production is like, I think, masterful. I think every song on this album just sounds amazing. Even if you're not really into this style of music in general, you can still, I think anyone can appreciate the fact that this album just sounds like so polished and so incredible. And I mean, that's all I have really to say about Brat. We did a whole episode on this.
Yeah, that was our
early days of this
second
podcast.
episode, I believe.
Yeah.
I guess the only other thing I know, I need to mention this. Like Charlie has always had this club girl, very all over the place like persona, but I think this one does the best job at capturing that identity.
Yeah, because she really works to like deconstruct it and like actually analyze the emotional nuances to that sort of lifestyle that she's leading.
Yeah, she dives deeper and like explores the mindset of why you would kind of be this person.
Yeah, and what that does to you.
Yeah,
the effects of that as well.
And it's crazy that the emotional response I get from it like should feel like almost contradictory, like the way I listen to it and the way I see it used at like parties and like internet culture feels like it should be like a hypocrite kind of thing. So it's like, it's weird that it strikes those like 2 opposite ends.
I think this album, I feel like this is gonna sound bad, but I mean this in like the best way possible. It has a very strong Gen Z appeal.
Yeah,
because I think we're a generation where we have we can acknowledge like these deeper feelings and these deeper emotions, but we also love to joke about it and love to just like dance
Yeah,
instead
so
of like
quirky.
facing it.
Our
Or like we
trauma's so
like to face
quirky.
it. We like to face it by like joking about it and by
Yeah.
dancing, which whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not the right person to ask, but
Yeah,
that's just something I've observed.
that's up for you to decide,
Yeah.
fellow Generation Z people.
Okay. What's your number 2?
My number 2. So everything moving on. My 1 and 2. These are my 10s of the year.
Oh wow.
My number 2 is Imaginable Disc by Magdalena Bay, and this was also another recent put me on by Joshua,
Mhm.
and I was basically like floored by this album.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, motherfucker. Yeah, this is one of my favorite like just kind of ambiances and identities for an album this year. I keep mentioning, yeah, these kind of angelic female vocals with very like out of this world instruments is like some of my favorite music to listen to right now.
Cocktail Twins.
Yeah, Cocktail Twins.
Yeah.
Sweet Trip. It reminds me a lot of artists like that.
Mhm.
And I can also notice a lot of its influences that it draws upon, but I feel like she like wears it with a badge of honor and like is actually creating something new with all these inspirations.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is actually my number 1 pick, so we'll just talk about it here.
Yeah.
I agree with everything that Justin said. I think this album really takes you to like a different place.
Yeah.
Like that's something about music that I love, is how it can create a completely different universe and just take you there without any visual aid. It's just pure sounds. And I feel like that's what this album does best, is use these very heavenly vocals and creative sounds to just take you to another place. And it's just so impactful because it makes all the lyrics and everything hit way harder because you're so engrossed in what they're doing here.
Yeah, I was this was sitting at my number 1 for a long time. And I guess we're moving on to my number 1.
Yeah, sure.
Which came in very sneakily and took the spot of number 1, which is 2 Star in the Dream Police by McGee. And I have to thank Kevin for this one because he's been trying to put me onto McGee for a while. But yeah, I was also floored by this album. Like, this is one of the most interesting uses of like vocals and instruments that I've seen this year. I love the ambiance and just the tone that it's setting. It's like it works so well as like a psychedelic kind of piece, but also a very just melancholic, moody piece as well. Yeah. Which I think the way that it genre blends is really interesting to me. And I haven't really seen that before, honestly. And I don't know, I just want to ask you, do you have much experience with McGee?
I honestly have not heard a single song by
Really?
McGee. I've not gotten the chance to check him out. But what you're saying, it seems like stuff I'd really enjoy.
Yeah, heavily recommend, and I think you would also appreciate it as well.
Yeah, definitely have to check it out.
Awesome.
Yep, those are our favorite albums of 2024. Any last things you want to say?
Good year for music.
For sure.
Thank you to all the people who have put me onto awesome music. I really tried this year.
Hey, you're welcome.
I'm not going to say anything. Fuck you.
All right. We'll be talking about our favorite films of the year in our next segment.
Yes, sir.
And we're back with our favorite movies of 2024.
Yes, sir.
So let's start with a question. How good of a year do you think this was for movies?
I think...
Movie man.
It's kind of a hard question for me to answer because I feel like the general public is always like, movies aren't good anymore. Very normie answer. So I kind of feel like every year is kind of a good year, honestly. Like, you'll always be able to find or like seek out things.
Good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that will connect with you. And I feel like there's just constantly projects being made.
Yeah, I guess that's very true.
Yeah.
I feel like I've never experienced like a bad year for music. Or
yeah,
movies.
I'm trying to think back like as of recently, and it's like kind of hard to because every single year there's at least 5 things that are going to stick with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. then let's just get into our favorites.
So yeah, sorry, no, not a solid answer, but
I mean,
yeah,
it's not like a yes or no question, really. It's a more nuanced thing. But let's start with our honorable mentions. Would you actually? I'll go first because I have way less than you.
yeah.
So for my honorable mentions, I first have Challengers, which I thought was a very, very strong character-driven sort of film. And yeah, I just think it's very overstimulating in a good way with its loud ass soundtrack, just like blurring through the whole thing. And yeah, it offers a very interesting look into like relationships and like the different sides of the different kinds of relationships one would encounter throughout their life and sort of how you learn to deal with it and handle these different types of people that'll come in your life and the experiences that they'll offer.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. In terms of like rewatchability, I think this is definitely near the top of this year because just it flows so well and like it just the energy from it is some of the best of the year.
And we're getting 3 amazing performances too.
Yeah.
Zendaya, I don't know the rest of their names.
Oh my god,
the 2 other
it's
guys
slipping me too, but yeah, the ones who play Art and Patrick. Yeah, this one I really enjoyed it when I first saw it, but I feel like it just continues to grow on me as I think about it. Like I think it's one of the most interesting uses of sports in a narrative that I've seen maybe ever, honestly.
Because the movie's about sports, but it's not really about sports.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really about how tennis influences
these people's choices
Yeah.
and like what they mean to each other,
Yeah.
basically.
And yeah, one of the most interesting ways the story's been presented, like emulating a tennis game, like bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the best like climaxes like ever,
Oh yeah, for sure.
honestly.
It feels so reminiscent of like the Whiplash climax.
Yeah.
Maybe in a less straightforward way. There's definitely a lot more nuanced character drama going on with this one, but it still feels very similar to the feelings that I got when I first saw the Whiplash ending.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's just so refreshing to see Zendaya in this type of role. Of course, I'm going to have some controversial opinions maybe later about another project she was in this year.
Okay.
But I think she fits this character super well.
Yeah.
And like elevated the story.
Yeah, definitely maybe her best performance yet that I've seen from her.
I think, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really appreciate how like this movie had such like widespread appeal among people our age, because I think it's rare that we find character driven movies like this to be so popular.
Yeah.
Especially among like kids our age. Like there's not really a spectacle here. It's just like very straightforward, the lives of these 3 people.
That did surprise me too, honestly, because this does feel like a very true to Luca Guadagnino story.
Yeah.
But also it does feel like he's branching out and doing something new at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And also this is the first collaboration between Luca and Justin. I always forget his name. Justin Kuritks, screenwriter, also known as the Potion Seller on YouTube.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're just a great collaborative duo. And
he put some magic potion in this one.
He used his magic potion. He's also married to, I wanted to bring this up too. He's married to Celine Song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And they both made movies about like throuple kind of relationships.
Yeah. Obviously hers was a lot more wholesome.
Yeah.
But
I think that sentiment or that idea is really funny.
Maybe they like it like that.
Exactly. It kind of makes you question what their relationship extent is like.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah.
We could talk about Challenge forever, but we should move on.
Yeah. To my second and last honorable mention, which is Long Legs. Just a great horror movie, honestly. Had me low-key at the edge of my seat a lot of the time. Not because of what the movie does, but more so what the movie doesn't do. Because for a horror movie, this has like a very low amount of jump scares. It's more about the feeling that it creates, that this killer that we're following, that he could be like anywhere that the main character is, and how like a lot of the shots are sort of composed to have a lot of open space where like someone could jump out. but
Yeah.
like they don't. It's just that feeling of dread that the director creates. And yeah, I think it was a very good performance by Micah Monroe.
Yes.
Mika Monroe? I don't know.
Micah.
Micah Monroe. And I think the story definitely takes a bit of a nosedive near the end when they introduce some supernatural elements
Yeah.
very suddenly, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I think overall this movie is a very, very frightening experience. And I think I was going to say my favorite horror movie of the year, but not my favorite horror movie of the year. My second favorite horror movie of the year. And yeah, third, actually. Third.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot too. It's definitely gone down in my memory a little bit. Like
Mhm.
the final act doesn't sit as well with me.
Mm.
Sorry to say, but it's quite literally a ripoff of Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
I've not seen that.
But yeah, solid horror movie, and I like that it was really getting people to watch horror movies
Yeah.
and be interested in
And the
genre.
Nick Cage performance. We
Yeah.
cannot forget. Classic Nick Cage. He does a great job.
Yeah,
And-
ranks very highly in the Nick Cage catalog.
For sure.
Those are
And
your only honorable mentions?
Those are my only honorable mentions for this year.
Okay. So I put a lot, and I didn't feel good about not mentioning some of these.
Mm-hmm.
So let me try to list them off.
Yeah.
This is a really good year for animation. I was very impressed. We have Flow and Look Back. Flow was just kind of this surprise that I really wasn't expecting. It is by Janus Films, which is like a huge studio that puts a lot of foreign and like independent movies out there, art house movies.
Yeah.
And I thought this was very interesting look. This is a movie about animals during like a very like the flood that kind of took out most of the earth. Like it's like a biblical story.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought that was super interesting. Very awesome animation style.
Mm-hmm.
And then Look Back by the same creator of Chainsaw Man. This is a very brisk, short movie. It's only like 58 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
But I thought it was perfectly executed in that time. Very emotional and interesting look on manga artists. Moving forward, we have I Saw the TV Glow. Does a great job of encapsulating this generation and the feelings of like struggling with like gender.
Yeah, gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, another good year, amazing year for Luca Guadagnino. Challengers, like we just mentioned, and Queer, which I really liked. And I think I'm going to keep liking as I watch him more because this one is definitely more true to like his older style of films. And I think that Daniel Craig character is just one of his best protagonists. And this is definitely one of his best performances I've seen. Kinds of Kindness by Yorgos Lanthimos. We have an entire episode on that.
Yeah.
Go check it out. And my favorite animated movie of the year, JK, second favorite animated movie of the year, is Memoir of a Snail. This is by Adam Elliott, who is most known for Mary and Max from 2009. I think he's just one of the most genuine and unique voices in animation. And this movie had me in tears. Like I was basically from start to finish, I was like locked into it.
Damn.
And yeah, I think that was the last movie in theaters I legit cried to. So yeah, it was great. Recommend that.
Yeah.
Dune Part 2. What can I say that hasn't been said before? I think this is just like the perfect example of like maximalist blockbuster storytelling.
Yeah.
I think Denis Villeneuve has just perfected his ability to tell stories on this kind of scale. One of my favorite Timothée Chalamet performances.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to grow into him as Paul Atreides, but
really solidified it.
yeah, like with this movie, holy shit. And I'm so excited for whatever he's doing next with the Dune franchise. Yeah. Hundreds of Beavers is another mention I have. This is a black and white kind of like slapstick screwball comedy is the best way to kind of describe it. And honestly, like I can't really describe it and do it justice. Like you kind of have to see how zany and creative it is. And this has one of the best like social media marketing campaigns I've seen recently. They'll like parody posters from other like famous like art house movies and stuff.
I don't think I've seen this.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
It feels almost like a YouTube sketch movie, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
And finally, for my honorable mentions, I'm so sorry. We have Anora by Sean Baker. Yeah, I think this is one of his best films. He also continues to excel in telling these very outlandish stories featuring protagonists who you wouldn't expect to see films through.
Mhm.
And might be my favorite character that he's made. It's between Anora, played by Mikey Madison, and Mikey Saber, played by Simon Rex from
Mhm.
Red Rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should probably stop now because I talk forever.
That was impressive. That was a crazy lightning round.
Thank you.
Definitely have to check out all of those movies. Like, honestly, I kind of slacked in the movie department this year, which is why I had so little honorable mentions.
It's
but
all good.
yeah, we'll definitely catch up on a lot of these. So we're gonna go into our number 5 that we share, which is going to be Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. And we plan to dedicate a full episode to this. So I guess we'll just save our thoughts for then.
Yeah. We'll hold off. But obviously, it's on our top 5s. It's both our number 5 spot.
Yeah.
We recommend it. And you'll hear more thoughts from us
For sure.
Later.
Yeah. And kind of following in the same vein, my number 4 is Kinds of Kindness, which we also did an episode on. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can listen to that. But I'll say that to sort of give like a brief summary of what I think, it's a very interesting look on, I guess, what love is and what love can mean to someone and what love can do to someone.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. And it's an anthology, which is always fun.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the most interesting looks and like commentaries on telling stories through an anthology format.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny how they use their kind of like connective piece in it. And I don't want to give it away, but you can hear us talk about it more, like we mentioned in episode 4.
That was 4?
I think so.
Oh, that's an early one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Episode 4.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm looking at my list. My number 4 choice is another one that I talked about in depth with Kevin.
Okay.
This was The Substance by Coralie Farge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I butchered the name in the episode we talked about it after thinking I sounded smart for saying Fajit.
Names are hard.
Yeah, it's hard. But yeah, this is also another one that I was very surprised it like blew up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love its use of telling a satirical story using body horror. I think this is one of the most interesting commentaries on like celebrity status and like
body dysmorphia.
Yeah, body dysmorphia
disorders.
Yeah,
all that heavy stuff.
Yeah, and easily 2 of the best performances from this year come from Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. Yeah, go check out our episode on that as well.
Yeah. And then for both our number 3, actually.
Perfect.
We've had
we had so much overlap this episode, which has been
but that's good.
Nice.
It's convenient.
Sorry, say your number 3 again.
DD.
Yes.
I don't remember the director's name.
Sean Wang.
DD by Sean Wang. This movie, honestly, it feels like this is kind of a stupid comparison, but it just feels like I get a lot of the same sort of appeal and vibe that I got from mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
They're both following a prepubescent boy, and they both involve skating culture to varying degrees of relevance. And yeah, this is just a very real look at a boy's life as a prepubescent Asian American teenager in the 2000s, and I guess all the drama and baggage that comes with just being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, my number 3. I'm gonna try not to ramble about this one for too long because I've been waiting to talk about this. But this movie kind of like, I'm not gonna say floored again. This movie stun-locked me. I think this is like the perfect example of like capturing the teenage American lifestyle. Like I think it does it to a T.
Yeah.
And this is just one of the most impressive first features I've ever seen. And one of the most like hard-hitting experiences I've had in a theater this year. I'm sure Joshua remembers, like there was a certain shot, like final look at the end that was
Yeah.
already putting me in tears. But by the time the credits were rolling, I was fully in tears
Yeah.
and like getting like shakes and like trembles. And I hadn't experienced that from a movie in a long time. And I think that just speaks to seriously how special this is and how much Sean Wang understands this experience.
What it's like.
Yeah.
Like he's so in touch with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like he's very in touch with the things he's gone through
Mhm.
to be able to put that onto the screen
Yeah.
in such an impactful way.
Yeah, which is really beautiful to me that he takes his own life experience and is able to be so vulnerable through it with this film. It honestly made me reflect on a lot of things in my life growing up, especially with not only transitioning from being a child to like a teenager, but also just like how I perceive relationships and friendships with people.
Yeah.
How I kind of let my hormones and like my insecurities kind of cloud everything.
Dictate your choices.
Yeah, early on in my life. And I mean, of course, the heart of the movie is your relationship with your mother.
Yeah.
And I think it made me reflect on a lot of things in my own life, not to get too personal, but just like how my relationship was with my mom and just how my view was like so tainted at a young age because of me experiencing puberty.
Yeah, and your own feelings.
Yeah.
And everything. Yeah. And this is really like this is one of those movies, again with the mid-90s comparison, it's kind of one of those like loose story movies where like things just happen and the movie ends. But I think it's done so powerfully here because it really is just like a snapshot of really mundane things, but the director is able to like sort of portray them in a way that's so relatable to where you feel the weight of everything that happens, regardless of the fact that it's just regular life. It's just stuff that like a lot of people go through.
Oh yeah. And it's like there's many countless cringe moments, but like cringe in the way where it's like
it hits so close to
it's just like, oh my god, I've been there.
Especially
I've
like
been told that.
His interactions like with the kids his age.
Yeah.
And all like the passive aggressive like drama that comes with like a bunch of insecure preteens interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he was able to I feel like this is some of the best representation of people in that age group in a movie period.
Oh
because
yeah. Like,
he's so just in touch with like how kids treat each other.
Yeah, amazing performances from very young actors. I think Isaac Wang is definitely one of the best performances from this year as the titular Didi as Chris Wang.
Yeah,
Lil Wang. And I think one last thing, I'm sorry, I kind of rambled, but this movie does a perfect job at encapsulating that feeling of being an Asian American and kind of like, downplaying, but also like being ashamed of your heritage and like where you come from. And I think that hit home to me, especially, even though I grew up in a very Asian dominated area.
Yeah.
I always felt this like level of disconnect and like feeling that like I shouldn't be proud of where I come from. And it took me a long time to realize that it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's no reason I should be not proud of my culture.
I think it's because we grew up during the time right before I think minority representation became such a big deal.
Yeah.
Like we went through our whole early childhood before that period. I think now that we're in this era where not only are we more aware of that, but more directors and artists of minority groups are given opportunities to share their stories. Now that we're in that era, I definitely think, especially with a movie like this being able to exist, like people like Asian Americans like us will be able to, at a young age, look at these things and feel more solidified and confident in their identity, not be as ashamed about it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's movies like this this that's gonna help the culture and like the perception of honestly Asians in general, but
For
also
sure.
just like being more aware and understanding of other cultures.
Yeah.
And I know that's a lot to say and that's very hyperbolic, but I feel like it's true.
Yeah.
And
And this movie did a lot, like,
yeah,
to be honest. Like,
quite literally, thank you, Sean Wayne.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for whatever else he has next.
Hmm.
That was also my number 3. So let's go to your number 2.
Okay. Quite the tone shift. But my number 2 is going to be The Substance by Carolee Forgy.
Coralie
Coralie
Fage.
Forge.
Yeah.
I completely butchered that. Yeah, this, I mean, Justin pretty much said it perfectly. It's it's a really interesting look at like how we view celebrities, the standards we put upon them, and sort of, and I guess just women in general in the industry,
Yeah.
and how like all the sort of insecurity that can come with feeling this need to be perfect. And I really love how the comedy aspect of this movie doesn't really impede on strength of the message. Like, you can still feel the emotional weight of everything that's happening despite how absurd it gets. And I also love how this movie really just goes for it. Like, it doesn't pull back any punches. It gets really, really insane,
Does
especially like near
not.
the
Yeah.
end. There's some really gross stuff depicted,
Yes.
and not just involving like the body, but stuff involving food
Oh,
in the body.
yeah.
And not to get too spoilery, but it it's just so impressive how she's able to accomplish so many things at once
Mm.
with this movie. And obviously we have two amazing performances, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, which will definitely get snubbed at the Oscars,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
very unfortunate. I think this movie in general is just going to get snubbed at the Oscars, which sucks. But we'll still acknowledge how great it is. And yeah, it's just a very captivating story with a very interesting message and
Yeah.
a very interesting way to look at that message.
Yeah.
And
On your Oscars comment, I actually don't know how it's going to do in award season because I think just the fact that it's commenting on like Hollywood and that stuff is giving it a little more edge
yeah,
compared to other horror movies. And like people are the Academy, not the Academy, but like big award shows are recognizing Demi Moore.
yeah.
So I
Because
don't
I mean,
know.
Hollywood loves like a good like comeback story. Truly.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, well, I guess yeah, you could call it a comeback story. Like, she's, you know, this is like her first like big thing in a while.
Yeah. So I'm also interested to see how it's gonna do.
I mean, it's horror though, so it's like it's very hard to like
Exactly.
think of it being in the conversation for something like Best Picture
It's just
or
bullshit.
Best Actress.
Like
Even though
it's so deserving.
yeah, it so deserves
Yeah.
like either of those awards. And yeah.
Okay. My number 2 is the film Perfect Days by Wim Wenders. And yeah, I think this was just like a sleeper hit that I think is somehow was a more emotional experience for me than Dee Dee. This is a movie about a toilet cleaner in Japan. And from that premise, you're not going to think much about it. But the way he explores his life through like the mundaneness and repetition is one of the most interesting like character studies I've seen recently. This is, oh my god, I'm forgetting his name. This is starring Koji Yakusho, who a lot of people know from Cure, which I mentioned, and he is amazing in this role. He's very soft spoken and he does not have much dialogue. So I think that's one of the most interesting performances I've seen. Is quite honestly, there's not a lot of movies where an actor can communicate so much without words.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil the movie, but there are just certain themes and moments of dialogue that at first glance might not seem like much, but the more you kind of think about it, will like the impact will be greater.
Yeah.
And it is one that you kind of have to come back to. And I don't like saying that about a lot of movies because that feels kind of like insistent, but this is definitely one that I'm gonna keep revisiting in my life.
Yeah, definitely have to check it out. I
Yeah,
honestly wouldn't have heard about this movie if it weren't for you
Mm.
mentioning it, because did it get like a very limited release, or was it just
It wasn't limited, but it was very small. Like it was kind
Okay.
of in and out, which is sad.
Yeah, that sucks.
But it's on Hulu right now. So anyone out there who's listening, please go see it. We need more movies like this.
Yeah. Great. And my number one favorite movie of this year is going to be Dune Part 2. So, yeah. I mean, I've had like the whole year to sell on this movie, and I'm pretty set on this being my number one. And I really just think it comes down to the scale of this movie and what this movie is able to achieve. Obviously, like Justin said, Denis is a master at handling this sort of scale and presenting it in a way that feels larger than life, feels out of this world. And I think what separates Denis from other Hollywood directors that make big action blockbusters is that Denis' movies have this sort of foreboding energy to it. Like the the scale of it isn't just a wow factor. It kind of leaves you speechless seeing
Mm-hmm.
like how like grand everything is, because it's just so out of our comprehension of what real life is versus like what this fantasy world he's portraying, like what it's sort of capable of and what can be shown. And yeah, and obviously the performances, all the performances of in this movie are great. I really enjoy Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides. I think he really proved himself with his performance in this movie.
Yeah.
He goes honestly 100%, 110% with it, with the intensity, and sort of Paul's rise to become a leader is portrayed so perfectly, and like he's able to be someone you root for while also having that morally gray area to it. Holy shit.
Someone's still going through puberty.
Oh my god, shut up. And then we have Zendaya as Chani, which I thought worked very well. I think she uh gave it a lot more vulnerability than I think how she is in the book, which
Mm-hmm.
honestly I think worked more for a movie made today. And obviously I'm gonna give a shout out to Austin Butler as Fade Rotha, which is honestly one of the most unexpected performances, but
And
worked
Austin.
really but worked really well, because I'd only known him as freaking Elvis,
Yeah.
but seeing him do something so left field and so far away from that and actually make it work really well was really impressive, and it makes me view him much more highly as an actor.
Yeah.
And
I agree with most of what you just said.
okay.
I mentioned when we were talking about challengers,
Hmm.
I do not think that Zendaya works well for this role.
Okay.
I don't know. There's just something about her performance and the way she delivers lines that just doesn't like feel as natural. And it's this thing with these kind of sci-fi stories where it's like if an actor gets it and like understands like the mannerisms,
Yeah.
you can really tell. But there's certain actors who are not quite there
Okay.
yet. And I feel like
Zendaya is that.
yeah.
Okay. I do not agree. I guess I just didn't see that feeling of I didn't really see that feeling of being out of place in her performance. Like obviously I feel like she was very different than her character in the book,
Mm,
but I felt it was more it serviced the story better, especially with how much they have to condense it for it being portrayed on the big screen. But I get where you're coming from, because there's that sort of I don't know what you even call it, that sort of feeling with like actors like Zendaya, actors
Yeah.
like Timothée Chalamet, where like they're in these like fantasy worlds that you have to like be really invested in, but it's hard to because they look like they know what an iPhone is. like
yeah.
I definitely understand that, but at the same time, I feel like I could feel the passion and the grit in both of their performances, to where I was fully convinced that they are these characters,
Yeah.
regardless of any preconceived notions I had of them as people.
Yeah, which is weird. I kind of felt that way about Timothy in certain points of the first one, even though I still enjoyed him.
Uh huh.
But I just felt like this part of the narrative complements him so much better,
Mm-hmm.
and he was able to really like
Show his chops.
show his chops and feel more comfortable in this world. And I think maybe that's the problem, that Zendaya didn't really have the first movie to kind of like
Sell
get to
you.
know it.
Yeah.
And she kind of had to do it all here.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, she has a much less significant role in the story compared to Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know. She's kind of like a co-lead in Dune Part 2.
I don't know. Honestly, I'll just agree to disagree with you because I don't really see any problem with her performance. It doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the movie.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up.
Oh, no.
Is there anything else you want to mention with Dune?
I mean, the story I think the way it concludes is it's honestly like the best direction they could have taken it. Obviously, it had already been written, but I hadn't read the book yet, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And to see how it all unfolded, it felt so natural and like just like the perfect way to depict, to sort of convey the message that the story is trying to tell.
Yeah.
And it feels very reminiscent of Attack on Titan, which is one of my favorite TV shows ever. So just very cool to see. And
I love its almost subversion of like what you would expect from a blockbuster like this.
Yeah.
And Dune has always been kind of like the anti-sci-fi, anti-Star Wars type story. So it was really interesting to see this resonating with so many people.
Yeah. And I think now is the best time. Now is a better time than ever for people, for movies to be conveying these type of stories, because I think these are the stories that people want to see now.
Yeah.
Like the generic, like, oh, hero defeats villain and everything's good. Like, I think people are growing very tired of it because it's becoming harder and harder to show that in a compelling way in a way that's new. I think by taking the first story to ever really subvert that and sort of portray it in a modern lens is a very good decision. And I'm glad that we have Dune movies now and that we're capable of depicting this story in a way that does the book justice.
Yeah. This is a book adaptation done right.
For sure.
And you wonder why we're getting sick of the typical hero villain formula. Superhero movies. Yeah. And I know I just yapped a lot about why I didn't enjoy Zendaya, but everything else in this film I think is pretty like close to perfection.
Yeah. And it feels airtight. Like, just the flow. It's a very long movie, but it feels like everything just flows perfectly and that everything is the perfect length that it needs to be.
Yeah. Dune.
That's Dune. Dune Part 2. And honestly, it makes me appreciate the first movie even more because
I agree.
It's kind of the same as like the Attack on Titan effect, where like what it does in the later half sort of recontextualizes the first half and makes it better for it. Like a lot of decisions that are made in the first half that maybe I wasn't too crazy about at first, I think are made much better because of what that eventually leads to. And yeah,
it made me interested in the Dune universe, which it takes a lot of effort and skill for someone to create something I'm unfamiliar with and then want to seek out more.
Yeah. Especially with something so intricate like this.
Yeah. Dude, seeing Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 from Denny and comparing it to the David Lynch movie is insane.
I've not seen the David Lynch movie, but I did see parts of it when you were watching it.
Yeah.
And it looks hilarious. Very goofy. I think Denis is just honestly becoming one of my favorite directors ever. Like, I think he's so good at handling basically like all kinds of stories. Like with Prisoners, with Enemy, with Blade Runner, with this, like he just shows so much versatility, but also a lot of uniformity in how he handles things. Like he has a very distinct way of telling these stories. I think from the get-go, he's had a very distinct voice.
Yeah.
That's very clear when you watch his movies. And I think that's what makes him such a compelling director to follow through his filmography, because it feels uniform, but at the same time, every movie feels like he's exploring a different avenue of how to tell a story. Yeah,
He's already locked on to do part 3,
thank
but
God.
I'm very interested to see where his career takes him elsewhere.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a very interesting point where after he's had all this success and like
Uh-huh.
newfound success
Yeah.
with Dune, I feel like that's a very interesting spot he has as a creative.
I feel like this won't happen, but I would really love him to do another movie like Enemy,
Mhm.
very grounded, but still has like
Yes.
sci-fi elements and still has this very supernatural feel to it, but still telling a very grounded story. Because
Mhm.
I love when he goes sort of horror with his movies and has this sort of like dreadful feeling to it. Because I
Yeah.
think he's very good at pulling that off. Like Enemy is like one of my favorite movies ever because
Yes.
of that.
I also love Enemy, and I think it's very underrated.
For sure, yeah.
For a second, I thought you were going to say it would be really interesting for him to make a failure or something like that. I was like, yeah, that would also been cool.
I mean, that would
Yeah.
be interesting, but I
Yeah.
don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I'd like to see a straightforward like horror
Yeah.
or like psychological.
Yeah, because I know he could pull it off for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, Enemy is already like
It's like
he's almost there.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a thriller.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Denis and Dune.
Yes, my number one of the year.
This is going to be unsurprising to anyone who knows me
Mm-hmm.
because I've mentioned it many times on this podcast and to people IRL. But my number one is Mars Express, directed by Jeremy Perrin.
Okay.
I'm going to just be confident and assume that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a French animated film that was, I feel like, just completely ignored this year. And it didn't have a huge release.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Would not have heard about this if it weren't for you.
Yeah. But since I saw it, I think in sometime during the summer, it's just remained my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah.
It's kind of like tailor-made for me. It like blends sci-fi noir together in like the perfect way. And genuinely, this is like one of the best examples of using like limited resources in animation, but having that benefit the overall look to the movie.
Yeah.
Because this is not like Spider-Verse levels of animation. It's a lot more simple.
Yeah.
But I was still very impressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will continue to sing its praises and recommend this to people.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't have much else to say because I just overall just love everything about this movie.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to talk about everything I did love, we'd be here forever.
Yeah. I will make sure to check this one out because it sounds very interesting.
You better.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I'm sad. I definitely had an opportunity to see this in a theater, but I missed it.
Can't catch them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the anti-Pokemon.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah. So those were all our favorite films of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to mention some TV releases.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll chime in a bit because I did watch some good TV shows this year. Yeah.
Okay. How about you start again?
All right. Well, I guess I'll mention Smiling Friends and Invincible, which were the only TV shows from this year that I saw. Both animated, and I'll talk about Smiling Friends first. I was very in the middle with this show for a while because I wasn't immediately into the humor, but I think one day it just clicked for me. I think it's when I saw the episode with the scientist from this latest season.
Oh yeah.
That really sold me. That's honestly like one of the funniest episodes of television I've ever seen. Like that is just like nonstop. Honestly, my favorite episode from the whole series. And yeah, it got me to check out the rest of the show outside of the few episodes I'd seen. And yeah, I'm just really in love with like the cast of this show. I think all the characters are incredibly funny in their own really unique and quirky way. I just think that the jokes on this show are just so like they feel so caveman brain like stupid, but at the same time you can tell that they're very calculated and like they're coming from a place of like, oh yeah, these writers know how to tell a joke, just not in the way that you would expect.
Yeah. I think in simple terms, like whenever someone asks me to describe the show, I'm just like, it's intellectual brain rot.
That is a perfect way to describe it because you feel the degradation of your mental state while you watch it, but it's in a way that is enjoyable.
Yeah, it has like, and this is like so shameful to say this. It has like the Family Guy approach of like being overstimulating and like throwing everything at you.
And random too.
Yeah. But it has this level of self-awareness, and like it's apparent that these writers are above that kind of humor.
Yeah. And they're not taking the most like bare bones simple approach to being random
Yeah.
like Family Guy does. This is off topic, but like when I watch a Family Guy episode, I feel like every joke is like expected.
Yeah.
Like when they set up a cutaway, you can immediately tell where it's gonna go.
Mhm.
And there's no, even though Family Guy, like everyone says it's so random, like it really isn't. Like it
Mhm.
really just goes the most predictable way you could think of.
Yeah.
And that is not true for Smiling Friends. And I also want to say that the animation for the show has like improved greatly.
Yeah.
Like there are some crazy sequences, especially when they go to that like one like weird town. I forgot what it was called, but it's like everyone's like glitching out,
Yeah.
and when they're like escaping, the animation just gets like crazy. And it's like it's a big step up from season 1, especially.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but there's basically there's certain shots where there's like images that have not been rendered in, and that's like a part of the comedy. It has like that
Oh, yeah.
message that says like, oh, blah blah blah, this image, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like that kind of humor that I appreciate.
It feels so in touch with like today's like just pop culture in general and like meme culture especially.
Yeah.
But I feel like it references to it very tastefully. Like it's not doing it constantly. It only does it when like it services a joke, and a joke that's gonna land. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Cusack and Zach Hedell are two goats. They both do the voices.
Oh yeah.
And they're just so goated.
Uh-huh.
And I love their humor and
Yeah.
their understanding of like internet culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Has some really good internet cameos that I don't want to like spoil for
Yeah,
people.
you can't spoil if you haven't seen it.
But you'll definitely recognize a few.
Yeah. And the other show I saw this year was Invincible season 2.
Yes.
And I mean, it's just a continuation of everything that's been set up from season 1. And while I don't think it was as good as season 1, I still think it was a very worthy follow up. And I think where the story is heading, I'm very interested to see how they're going to handle it, because I can tell that this is very much a setup season for bigger things to come. And yeah, it's just very solid. The one thing I do have an issue with is that release schedule, which was really stupid. It honestly put me off from watching it, because I was like, okay, I'm not gonna settle for 4 episodes. I just waited until everything came out, because like I mean, 4, even though they're hour long, like 4 episodes is like not enough content.
Yeah.
For like to make people like get that and then wait for like, how long was it? Like 6 months or something for like the rest.
It was
of the
a good
season?
amount. It was really fucking stupid. I'm glad that you brought that up, because since the last time we mentioned that, mentioned Invincible, and because of that break in between seasons, I decided to read the entire Invincible series. And I'm going to try my hardest not to say anything, but yeah, this is definitely like a slump season, and just like you kind of have to get through this
part of the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll promise you that there are better things to come.
Yeah.
But removing my extended knowledge of what happens, I think this is still a really solid season.
Yeah.
For just like character development.
Yeah, for sure. I really love the character work, and I love like some of the new things they introduced, like how they gave like Rex like an actual character arc.
Yeah.
Outside of him just being like a snarky asshole. Like I really liked how they developed him and how they set up his arc for the future seasons.
Yeah.
And I really liked how they introduced Alan the alien. Obviously, he was in season 1, but very briefly. But I think they really solidified him as like a great character in this season.
And yeah, of course, Mark is a great lead, but I think we would not be saying that without Steven Yeun. Like, I think he is amazing in this role.
Yeah, one of the best casting.
Oh yeah,
some of the best celebrity casting ever.
Yeah,
honestly, I made a comment about celebrity casting earlier in the episode, but to be honest, like this show's like the one exception to where like, everything fits. Even like Seth Rogen as Alan, I think is like the perfect choice.
All of the cast is really great. But this also kind of leads into a gripe I have with the show. Is they decide to allocate a lot of its budget to celebrity casting instead of
Yeah.
getting voice talent or voice actors.
Uh-huh.
And that also leads into the animation not looking as
Yeah.
polished or great as you would hope,
Yeah.
which is really sad.
Especially because of like how action oriented this show is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally a superhero show. And obviously the fights, they look fine. It's just not to the level that I think this story deserves.
Yeah. And the only thing I'm going to like kind of hint about the future is that we are not even at the biggest scope things in this story,
Okay.
scale events. And if this is how the animation is looking for these events of the story,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little worried about what's to come,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, but we'll
It's-
we'll see. I'll hold my
I'm hoping they get
judgment.
more budget because this show has been consistently like big.
Yeah.
Like people are watching it.
Yeah.
And I hope they're making enough money to like allow for them to be able to depict whatever goes on later
Yeah.
in a way that does it justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my teasing. But yeah, overall it's still a solid season. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all your honorable mentions, right?
Yes. Well, TV shows.
In general. Oh.
Those are the only TV shows I saw
Oh,
from
wait,
this year.
sorry, not
So
honorable mentions. Okay.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm sorry.
Actually, there is one that I know you've seen. It's kind of like it started late 23 and bled into this year, which is The Rehearsal.
Oh, you are very right.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, I saw The Rehearsal. Wait, I did not see The Rehearsal. You mean The Curse?
Oh, I'm sorry, not the oh my god.
Okay, that's
not The
why.
Rehearsal.
Okay.
The Curse.
The Curse,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, we can talk about The Curse. I mean, okay, if we're counting that as 24, I would definitely say that was my favorite TV show from this year.
Okay, dope. Yeah.
I mean, damn, it's been a while, honestly, since I've seen it. But I mean, man, what a unique show. Like I've never really seen a piece of media like it where it's so off-putting and unsettling, but there's nothing really crazy going on.
Yeah.
Besides one thing that I won't say.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue into what I was going to say. Is that I was really enjoying it throughout the entire show. It's like the classic Nathan For You style of storytelling. Not the same level of comedy, but like the classic Nathan Fielder angle of storytelling.
Yeah, the vibe.
Yeah. And I was always like interested, but you really have to finish the entire show to see the scope of what it's doing.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had with the show.
Like it feels like it all rides on that last episode.
Yeah.
And I think it really stuck the landing. Like it's a great way to end it. Honestly, I think if you gave me 100 years to like, if I watched the first 9 episodes and I was given 100 years to predict the ending, I don't think I would ever guess what happens. To be honest, it's so left field.
Yeah,
but it's also very fitting narratively, and I think it's really interesting how the show is all building up to that final episode. But I think it's all the better for it because it creates such a unique experience and this feeling of overwhelming tension that just builds and builds. And when it's finally released, it feels like you feel relieved that you're free from this tension, but at the same time, you're confused because what happens in the last episode is so jarring. And
yeah. I don't remember what we mentioned this to, but talk about awkward cringe.
Oh my god.
This show, oh my god, there's some moments that are like a level of uncomfortable that not many shows can reach.
But it's almost genius because the way he's able to set up these like painfully relatable and like horribly uncomfortable situations that are like so specific too. Like they're not just like your average like, oh, someone makes a fool of themselves in public. Like it's like very specific, like one-to-one interaction type of awkwardness that honestly you experience day to day. But to put like this sort of microscope on these
to
things,
put it to screen.
And like to have like such a horror movie like soundtrack to be put over it just like elevates it to like another level.
Yeah.
And we can't go without talking about performances from Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone, which are both, I think, masterful. Like, they depict these characters so well that honestly, I kind of get lost in them. Like, I don't see Emma Stone, I don't see Nathan Fielder. I see whatever these guys' names were. It's been too long since I've seen it, but
Whitney.
I see Whitney, I see Asher.
Yes.
Yeah, I see Whitney and Asher. I don't see Emma Stone or Nathan Fielder. And I think that's a very impressive thing to do because I don't think a lot of movies and TV shows are able to do that. And the fact that this is just a 10 episode limited series and it's able to pull me in so easily is just says a lot about the performances from these two.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think we can't forget to mention Benny Safdie.
Oh yeah.
As Dougie.
Yeah,
Is his name? Yeah. To see him like this was very jarring at first, but oh my god, he's amazing in the show, and I think easily his best acting he's done.
Yeah. And like perfect like comedic relief, but in a way that's like fitting, like so fitting for the narrative.
Yeah.
Like
uncomfortable and degenerate.
It's comedic relief, but it feels like the story wouldn't be able to exist without it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And
also, I just remember this. I don't know his name, but he was in a Safdie Brothers movie as a security guard, and he plays like that one dad that they keep coming back to, who has the daughter.
I know who you're
the
talking.
African American man.
I don't know his name, but he also gave a very good performance.
Yeah, which I think is really funny because he has a funny little small role in Good Time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did a great job here too. I think he's very good at sort of exposing the fakeness of Whitney and Asher's sort of what they have going on here.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the way he reacts to everything is how a sensible person would react, not someone that's putting up a front or trying to be a people pleaser, you know?
Yeah, very interesting dynamics going on in this show.
Yeah.
Do you have much else to say about the curse?
I mean, no, that's it really. I really enjoyed this show. I don't think I'll ever see a show that made me feel the way this show made me feel again. But so I really love it for that.
You have not seen The Rehearsal yet though, right?
I have not seen The Rehearsal.
Oh boy.
But I definitely do want to check it out.
Yeah, definitely should. That's a whole nother Nathan Fielder experience.
A whole nother can.
And there's more coming, so look out for that. So that's all your shows?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had some other shows that I wanted to bring up that were really great this year. We have X-Men 97, which is like a continuation to the original X-Men cartoon. And before seeing it, I was very much like, oh, it's just Disney trying to capitalize off of an old property. But immediately I was proven wrong, and I was so impressed by how seemingly like modern the show is, but also like how true it is to the roots of the original series.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've just been in a slump of X-Men content, and it's been sad because this show reminds you that the X-Men are actually like really cool. And it's fucking nerdy, but like, yeah, I was like a giddy child again watching the show.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in the show, Joshua?
I mean, I heard it was good.
Okay.
And I know the animation is very good.
Yeah, one of the most, I'd say honestly, probably the best animation this year. And obviously it's because of that Disney money.
Oh yeah.
But even if you haven't seen the original series, it still works as its own thing. Yeah.
Maybe I'll check it out. It's definitely harder for me to get into TV shows because they're more of a commitment, but
yeah. It's really short though.
Yeah.
Moving on, Fallout on Amazon Prime. This is it's not a direct adaptation, but it's set in the Fallout universe, the popular video game. And this was another surprise from this year. I'm very unfamiliar with the Fallout universe, but unlike the Borderlands movie, this show made me very interested in this universe. And I think it just has really great characters that you view the story from. I can't remember his name, but he plays the soldier who kind of takes over the big robot suit.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen it will know what I'm talking about. Ella Purnell is great as Lucy, as the lead. I love her. I want her to be my wife.
All right, bro.
And oh my god, I'm forgetting his name. Walton Goggins. plays the ghoul, who's like kind of the antagonist in the show.
Yeah.
He is amazing, and is just such a fun character. And I've not really seen this actor in too many great projects, which is sad because even in the bad projects, I think he's really good. Like he's in I think he's in Maze Runner 3.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he's in Ant-Man and the Wasp 2.
Wait, who is he in Maze Runner?
The guy with like the scars and stuff.
Yeah,
Like the hole in his face.
I don't remember.
But sorry, not Ant-Man and the Wasp 2. Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I feel like he was just done very dirty with a lot of these movies, but he proves all y'all wrong who doubted him. So suck it. But yeah, really cool show, amazing production design and value, and I'm hyped for what's next. The Penguin on HBO Max was another surprise. This year was full of surprises. Kind of like Fallout, I was very much, or not Fallout, X-Men 97. I was very much against the idea of this show, but as the show progressed, I was proven wrong because there is a very interesting character study here that Matt Reeves explores. And I think it's genuinely a really interesting piece to expand the Batman universe.
Yeah.
And yeah, Colin Farrell is incredible in this role. Like he already showed a lot of good promise with the Batman.
Yeah.
But here he's just given like all the breathing room and so much like energy and just room to dive into this character.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in this show?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to check it out, especially because I mean I really like the Batman, and I think just from all the praise this show's been getting, I definitely want to check it out. And I always want to see more of Colin Farrell as well because I mean he's always great and everything.
For sure. Yeah, you should check it out. I think it's definitely one of his best performances in his career, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot. He's worked with Yorgos. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about The Penguin. And I don't have much else to say about these last two, but The Sympathizer on HBO Max was really great, and I thought this was a very interesting character study. The first 3 episodes are directed by Park Chan-wook. I mean, who a lot of people know. Very big Korean director, Old Boy, Handmaiden.
A goat. And
honestly, his 3 episodes are definitely the best, but this is still a very solid show, and I'd recommend this one.
Yeah.
And then finally, Dawn to Dawn, which is a recent anime that has started, I think has been super fun. One of the best pieces of just animation work.
Yeah.
It looks amazing, and I am really a fan of this style of storytelling. Are you interested in this one at all?
Yeah, I've kind of fallen off with anime, but it definitely looks like something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And it looks really cool. So maybe I'll check it out.
I don't have much else to say, but there's a certain episode with a drastic tonal shift that like caught me so off guard. And I haven't experienced it with a TV show in a while.
Yeah.
But it was fire. And like it's one of the best TV episodes I watched this year.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, that's all the TV shows I wanted to mention. And I guess that wraps up
Favorites
this extended segment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. That is 2024.
That is the entire year. I mean, we're not even in the next year yet, but I kind of wanted to bring up if there's anything that you know of that you're looking forward to next year.
Honestly, nothing that's been confirmed, but hopefully we get Chapel Run 2. Hopefully we get
Chapel Run, the sequel.
This is her second album. I don't know if it's coming out next year, but hopefully it does. Smiling Friends Season 3, hopefully. I don't know if that'll come out next year or 26, but that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Definitely the next Yorgos movie.
Oh shit, yeah, Bugonia.
Yeah, Bugonia. I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's gonna be great knowing him. Yeah.
I actually just saw the movie that he's remaking recently. It's Save the Green Planet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I'm like very curious to see what he's gonna do with that story, and also Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons in
Yeah.
those roles.
How was the movie? Was it good?
I thought it was really good.
Oh, okay.
It's very interesting and a very like atypical
Mm-hmm.
comedy satire.
Okay, well, perfect for yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it actually is perfect.
Cool. But yeah, besides those things, I mean, I don't really know much about like things being released. Like I only really know about it once they're out. So
Okay.
yeah.
There's something I know you're aware of.
Uh-huh.
We got a Panchico album next year.
Oh my god, yeah. How could I have forgotten?
Yeah.
That's so hype. I'm so glad they're like back to like consistently making music.
Yeah.
Too. Like I was scared that Failed Out Mass was gonna be like a one-time comeback thing, but now they're here to stay, which is great.
Okay. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Ginkgo.
Yeah, I think it's Ginkgo.
Okay. Hyped because we're seeing Panchico right after this album comes out too.
Yeah. So
Fuck yeah.
it's gonna go hard.
I think I have a few things I want to bring up. We have a documentary titled It's Never Over, Jeff Buckley, that is coming out.
Wait, that's sick.
Yeah.
Actually.
And I think I'm gonna catch it at Sundance, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's gonna be hype.
Um
Thank God it's not a biopic.
Yeah. Oh my.
Have you seen
Oh.
the Penn Badgley Jeff Buckley biopic?
Is that just like a fake concept?
No, it's real.
It's real?
A movie.
Huh?
It's a movie.
It's already out there?
Yeah, it was made like 10 years ago.
The fuck? I didn't hear about this. I've never
known about this.
What?
Bro, that is
What's it called?
I don't even know, to be honest. But wait, I'll see.
You're blowing my Penn Badgley as Jeff Buckley.
It's called Greetings from Tim Buckley. So it's like about like his dad and stuff. I don't know. But he's playing Jeff Buckley. It follows Jeff Buckley.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You just blew my world.
Yeah, I know. Dude, when I discovered that, I was equally as shocked.
That's crazy. More things I'm looking forward to. We got Saw 11.
Oh my god. I forgot that franchise existed.
Dude, that's what's been missing this year is another Saw.
On God. Bro.
Which we were supposed to get, but they delayed it.
That's okay. They need time to cook.
Yeah. Oh, new Bong Joon-ho movie, Mickey 17.
That was supposed to come out this year as well.
Yeah.
Hey man, he can take all the time he wants.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this one. Robert Pattinson,
dude.
Steven Yeun.
Perfect cast.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, obviously. I don't read much. But
if we were more cultured, we would have a book segment.
Yeah.
But ain't nobody got time for all that.
Yeah.
I did read Dune this year, but
did you finish it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, nice.
Very good.
Okay. We'll talk about that later. But I guess the last thing that I'm really looking forward to in terms of movies, I'm looking forward to Superman, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't have any reason to believe James Gunn isn't doing it justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just looks very true to Superman and like comic book.
That's what I was thinking when I saw the trailer. It feels like a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have that edge to it that feels so forced in a lot of superhero movies. Like it feels whimsical. It feels like heroic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what's been missing from superhero movies.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about like Guardians and like the Suicide Squad, which are all James Gunn projects, is that he incorporates the comic bookiness. I think these movies should have.
He's a pro at it. It would be nice to get a super good Superman movie next year.
Mm-hmm.
It would also be nice to get a good Fantastic Four movie next year. We'll see about that. Oh, okay. I just reminded myself. Invincible season 3 is next year.
Oh yeah, great.
I'm looking forward to. And The Rehearsal season 2, I think, is also coming out next year.
Oh, they're making a season 2?
Yeah.
Cool. Wait, so it's not entirely clear to me. Is it like a reality show or is it like a scripted show?
No, it's it's kind of a little ambiguous.
Okay.
But it's definitely like he's playing a character. Like it's for the most part, scripted show. Okay. I'd give too much away if I explained it to you.
Okay.
And I guess I just want to mention some other things that are coming out that are notable. Avatar 3.
Oh.
I don't know. Are you interested?
I haven't seen a single Avatar movie. Okay. So, I mean, looks cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of losing me with Avatar 2.
He's
Yeah.
playing.
We'll see.
I heard that from somewhere.
I don't know if you're aware of this project that's coming up. So we have a new Trey Edward Schultz movie. Do you remember who that is?
Yes, Waves. It comes at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this?
No. What
Okay.
is it?
So it's starring Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan.
Okay.
And also, it is produced by, and written by The Weeknd.
Bro, what?
Yeah.
What? Okay, that's we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Um,
Written by,
yeah.
dude. I don't even want to know what this man's cooking up.
Just based on The Idol, can't say I'm looking forward to this.
We'll see. I mean, Trey Edward Schultz is a goat. So,
Yeah, I know.
like,
he just like came into my mind one day. Pause. And I was like, oh, what's he up to next? And then I look this up and I find this. I'm like, ugh,
it's
not
in
The
good
Weeknd.
hands. So, like, we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. If The Weeknd's like too involved, it's gonna be scary.
Yeah, we'll see that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we got the Minecraft movie.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Yeah.
How are we feeling about Minecraft the movie?
Dude, I am Steve. It's already
I-
iconic.
I'm Steve.
Honestly, it's gonna be a train wreck, but I'm so down to see it and watch the dumpster fire unfold.
Oh yeah. Oh, another one of my favorite lines. Since I was a child, I longed for the mines. Or to be a miner or something like that.
Dude, that trailer was like a moment, and I feel like everyone just forgot about it. I think that just shows how crazy 2024 was. Like, that's
Yeah.
just like a moment in time for this year.
So much great stuff this year.
Yeah.
Haktua.
The Costco guys and the Rizzler.
Yeah.
Skibbity Toilet. Actually, no, Skibbity Toilet's like a few years ago.
But like its prominence
Yeah.
was this year.
Luigi Mangione.
Oh my god. Bro, don't even get me started.
Luigi?
I cannot. Dude, my friends have been so annoying about him.
They want him?
Yeah.
Bro. I mean, he's a good looking dude, so like can't even blame him.
Okay, let's hate that topic. He likes Pokemon, which is really funny to me though.
Dude, he's you.
Bro.
The election, obviously, like,
Yeah.
This is a packed year.
Yeah. How would you rate this year on a
This
scale of 1
year?
to 10?
Damn, bro. I mean, a lot of good stuff came out, a lot of bad stuff happened.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of neutral stuff happened politically
Yeah.
because we're not a political podcast.
Yeah.
So I think overall I give this year like an 8 because like
Nice.
it's very notable,
Mhm.
And I guess that's outside of like my own experience. I just this year as a whole, I give like an 8,
Mhm.
maybe a 9.
Nice. I'd say in terms of like media, it's like a 9.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Overall, yeah, maybe like a 7 or an 8.
Yeah.
But still a good year. I did a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
Lots of music events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very jealous.
Stay hating.
I gotta get my money up. That's all I need.
Yeah. Get your money up, not your funny up.
All right.
Okay. I think this is a good spot to end.
Yeah.
Apologies that this went super long, but you know what?
Had a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean,
And this is our
you-
podcast.
yes, it is.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. We're gonna talk about
Bye.
NOSFERATU at some point. Bye.
Yes.